shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
I think GB News is completely unique in the way that we interact with our viewers.
Our audience aren't afraid to have their say. They want their voices heard now, and they've got a channel where that can happen.
I find more and more as I'm wandering around, people come up to me and they say, we saw you on television. I say, oh yes, on what? On GB News. Hello, are you the famous Sue?
The whole crew hit me here now. We came to celebrate.
It's our job to be the eyes and ears of the viewers.
They are part of the GB News family, and I'm pleased to say it's a very large family.
And if people go to time and trouble of listening and watching, then we've got to do a good job for them.
Well, I'm here right in the epicentre of the protest.
Here we go again.
You just tuned in, where have you been?
It is raucous here tonight.
That's what makes us the fearless champion of Britain.
Very good evening, good morning, live from Washington, D.C. This is Bev Turner on GB News with the stories that are shaping Great Britain and the United States of America.
Well, he did say one very good thing. He said he's going to open up North Sea oil.
President Trump opens up on his relationship with Andy Burnham, praising the reopening of the North Sea. Plus,
they're coming from all over the world. They're coming from Africa. They're coming from South America. They're coming from different parts of Asia. And they're invading Europe. I mean, they're invading Europe. It's an invasion. And the UK is a prime suspect.
as 700 illegal migrants arrive just today in the UK, President Trump took the opportunity to sound the alarm this afternoon over the impact of migration on the whole of Europe. And President Trump's counter-terrorism advisor, Seb Gorka, is going to join me live in just a few moments. We're going to discuss the rise of Islamist terror in Europe.
I will invoke my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution to refrain from answering your questions. Thank you.
The biggest story of the last couple of days here in America, of course, it's barely being reported back in the UK. Anthony Fauci has faced off against American politicians in the House. I was there. I'll tell you what happened. It's been quite the day. I'm Bev Turner. This is The Late Show Live. Let's hear from you at home this evening. GBNews.com/your say. Let me tell you who's here with me in the studio. Hillary Ford, which is here this afternoon, political commentator this evening. Democrat strategist Richard Goodstein is here again. Good to see you, Richard. And in London, we've got former Labour MP Stephen Pound. He's back for a second visit. Obviously didn't put you off on Monday night, Stephen. Good to see you back. And also Conservative councillor David Moore. Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us. Now then, our main news this evening. It has been a very busy day here in Washington, D.C. I was at the White House this afternoon. It was later on in the day, the last kind of appointment of the day for the president. And I got to ask Donald Trump whether Britain should be drilling for more oil and gas in the North Sea. Let's have a quick look at what he said to me.
Thank you. Bev Turner, GB News. We've just heard you talking about another example of American excellence. That's really what this is. It's a project where you're striving to be the best in the world. As a Brit, that's really striking to me. You've had a couple of weeks to get to know our new Prime Minister. Have you spoken to him much? And do you think he is the man to lead us to excellence?
Well, he did say one very good thing. He said he's going to open up North Sea oil. If he does that, you're going to be a wealthy country. If he does it reasonably, I was telling Prime Minister Starmer, open up the North Sea. Open it up. You'll be okay. Open it up. They have two problems. They have a huge immigration problem, people coming from all over the world and just camping out in your country. And we've taken a very tough stand. In fact, for 14 months, nobody has come into our country. Zero, which is almost hard to believe, but that's what the report says. Our borders become very strong, and your border is very weak. He's got that problem, and he's got energy problem. He's got windmills all over the place, and anytime you see windmills, you see a failing country, and they're made in China, not used by China, but they're made in China. And you have a thing called the North Sea, and you buy a lot of your energy, as you know, from the North Sea. You buy from Norway, and Norway gets it from the North Sea. They get their oil from the North Sea. And Norway's got trillions of dollars in the bank, trillions. It sells its oil from the North Sea. And Scotland has a better part of the North Sea. And you have 500, 600, 700 years. You have areas of the North Sea that haven't even been explored yet. You have one of the most valuable oil finds anywhere in the world. And if the United Kingdom would use it, they'd be a wealthy country again. And I tell you what, I could not get Starmer to use it. It was incredible. Every oil company that I meet, and these are all big giants, every person that I know in the oil business said, please, could you open up the North Sea? Could you get them to open it? They're dying to do it. And if you open up the North Sea to the oil companies, Scotland, Ireland, the UK as a whole, but it's right in Aberdeen, Scotland. It's right in Aberdeen. And that would be one of the most vibrant. You know, it used to be called the oil capital of Europe. Aberdeen was the capital of Europe. And now it's, they don't drill oil. And nobody can understand why. You have it's among the finest oil, it's the best oil anywhere on the planet. And it's unbelievable plenty. You don't have to pay Norway triple what it costs them to take out. You have your own oil and gas. If you use the North Sea, the UK will be a really rich country. I cannot get the point across. The new gentleman, when I spoke to him, he said he's going to open up the North Sea. Let's see if that happens.
The new gentleman, he means Andy Burnham there. Now, you probably couldn't hear the question that I posed at the beginning. President Trump had laid out his plans this afternoon for a massive improvement of Dulles Airport, which is the main airport here in Washington. It was an ambitious project bringing together private airlines, the owners of the airport already. And I said to him, I stood there and watched this display of aspiring for excellence, and I asked him whether the Prime Minister is the guy that he thinks can help the UK get back to aspiring to excellence. And you've heard his answer. Obviously, he talks about fuel there, Hillary. Let me ask you about this. When President Trump says that it comes from a place of such passion of wanting the UK to do so well, do you agree with him?
Oh, absolutely. Remember, of course, his mother came from Scotland. He was brought up, and one of his earliest memories was sitting on his mother's knee and actually watching the coronation. So he has had this passion built into him from his family, his blood, his upbringing, and all that his family ever stood for. So this is not something that is just going with the polls, and this is a special relationship. So I do believe he means that. And of course, the North Sea oil, he was absolutely right. It is totally, utterly ludicrous that the UK buys oil out of the Brent crude field. Basically, when you hear Brent crude, it's the Brent field, from the Norwegians, who are making millions, instead of us actually drilling it ourselves. So he's 100% right on that. And when he says all windmills are ugly, of course, I lived in Holland. I headed global business development for KPMG there. Don't tell the Dutch they're windmills, as you made the point. Bev actually said, oh gosh, don't tell the Dutch that. But they had historic windmills, and they were rather beautiful on land. But what he's talking about is he's talking about when you're in Scotland and you look out on the oceans, these windmills, and rather ironically, the turbines, what's ironic about the turbines is not only do they not move when the wind doesn't blow, but then when it comes to disposing of them, they're not biodegradable. They're actually terrible for the environment. Last but not least, the whales die because of the reverberations through the water of the noise. So they're really actually, ironically, in the long run, the carbon footprint of installing them is very bad for the environment.
Yeah, Richard, you pay about 3 or 4 times less for your energy here than we do in the UK, our electricity and gas bills. Do you know how lucky you are to have a man like that running your fuel department and your production here?
I don't think this happened just since he's become president again, but I do think there's a kind of a schizophrenia about this. It is certainly true it's nuts to have your own supply of oil in the North Sea and to be importing it from somewhere else. But here, in the backdrop of Europe burning, France, Spain, these temperatures even in the UK, indisputably a function of man-made climate change, which is a result of putting greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. So I kind of feel for, and I know you're going to have people talking about this, but I do think there's a certain schizophrenia as we think about getting more oil to be burned. But again, I think the fact is, if you're substituting oil that's going to be burned in the UK for oil that you'd be otherwise getting from Norway, get it from home. And yeah, let's hope that your oil prices go. And I have no doubt that he thinks good thoughts about the UK.
Right, let me go to my first guest on this before I go to my London panel. Thank you for kicking us off, though, guys. Let me talk to the Director of Climate Media Coalition, Donncha McCarthy. Donncha, I'm sure you share some of Richard's concerns that baby drilling, is not the way to go. What do you think when you hear President Trump talking like that? Does your blood boil?
Not my blood boil, but my heart breaks. If you have watched the scenes across Europe this week, it's been absolutely horrific. We've had the driest and hottest spring ever, and France and Spain are ablaze. It is a wake-up call to the world. And listening to Donald Trump, you can't take anything he says seriously. He's delusional about the North Sea. The North Sea opened 30, 40 years ago. It peaked. It peaked in 1999. There's only around 7% of it left. And he's delusional. You could hear him. He's delusional. He actually said China uses no wind or solar. The actual facts, the fact checkers say China uses 50%, has installed 50% of the world's wind turbines and over 50% of its solar panels, more than the rest of the world put together. So he's just delusional.
Do you know how many people have been arrested in France since the 6th of July linked to the fire outbreaks in Spain?
Yeah, the fact is, if you drop a match, if you drop a cigarette,
go on, give me a figure.
If you drop a barbecue,
give me the figure.
I don't care how many were arrested. The fact is, they dropped those matches on forests that are tinder dry because of climate crisis.
162 people.
Absolutely disgraceful. They should be arrested.
162 people. And the French government have said 9 out of 10 fires are caused by humans. 25% of them deliberately, and the rest by negligence. So
all true.
When you sit there as though these fields are spontaneously combusting, that's not
what I
the
said,
truth,
Beverly.
Donncha.
That's not what Beverly, don't put words in my mouth. I said that when humans drop matches or barbecues, they set them alight, and what it does is, because they are tinder dry, it's impossible to control them. The idea that you are actually trying to make excuses in the middle of the greatest criminal act in human history, Margaret Thatcher is turning her graves because, Beverly, please wake up. Read the science from the 1970s by Exxon and BP and Shell. Their scientists told them in the 1970s that if we didn't stop burning fossil fuels, by the 2020s we'll be having what's exactly happening. Temperatures have gone up and we're facing extreme weather, and it's threatening our agriculture and the future of our civilization.
And you believe that by doing what, humanity can control that, and in what sort of time scale? Because when you hear leaders, and it's not just President Trump, but if you hear political leaders talk about the UK and how poor we are and how expensive it is for our businesses to power themselves, and how data centres, Donncha, are going to wipe out our energy provision, what you're saying is that doesn't matter. I don't care about those businesses. I don't care about those people, because
you're putting words in my mouth.
I'm going to give you an opportunity, but give me a chance. I'm not putting words in my mouth, but I think what those people who take your positions are basically saying, the implication is, we need to suffer now because we're going to save what generation? Is it 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, 100 years? Help me understand that.
People are being burnt alive this week in Europe. Farms are being burnt to the ground this week in Europe. And it's not about sacrifice. Green energy, according to the International Energy Agency, green energy is the cheapest on the market now for new energy. And in Britain, you're right, our electricity is expensive. And the reason why is because we privatise our national grid and they charge us £500 to £600 profit on our bills every year. Our electricity is around 13, we're cheaper than 12 other countries in Europe at wholesale price. But actually, at the retail price, with all of the with all the brown levies put on by privatisation and the Tories, we've got VAT, we've got standing charges, we've got the privatisation levy, we've got the constraint payments, all of which are brown levies and make our bills expensive. It's not the green energies making our expensive, it's the brown levies, Beverly. Look at electricity, look at the breakdown, and I promise you'll be astonished.
I see it. I see it, and I think the bills are deliberately complicated. I think people are designed, the bills are designed for people not to understand their energy bills. It's one source of great frustration for me when I go down my bill and I can't quite work out why I am paying 4 times as much as I would pay for here in the UK. It needs simplifying. But I am interested in this idea that environmentalists like yourself will argue that we need to make this sacrifice now for change.
I didn't say that.
I think it's
You're doing it again.
Okay.
You're doing it again. I did not say sacrifice. I said it's cheaper. No sacrifice, it's cheaper. That's what I said. Please don't put the opposite opinion into my voice.
Okay, so how can we then, as citizens of the UK, have cheaper fuel most quickly? How do we achieve that? Because we definitely share a view that we'd both like to see that.
Okay, first of all, we remove the standing charge. Standing charge is around £300 on every single bill. It's a poll tax on poor people. The second one is VAT.
Couldn't agree more.
There's 5% VAT, that's a tax. Then there's the National Grid is privatised. It's owned by Dubai and American private equity. They charge £500 on each bill profit. So I believe in competition. I believe in markets where there is possible to be competition. For example, the energy providers. But in the energy infrastructure, the national grid, there is no competition. And so it's like a license to print money, Beverly, and they charge us £500 every year. Our bills are £1,800. At £500 is this privatisation levy.
All right, let me bring in my panel as well in London to discuss this with us. Let's go to Stephen Pound and Councillor David Moore as well. Guys, if you're there. Stephen, what do you conclude when you hear this conversation? We're in a country of abundance here, as I sit in America, and they are still drilling, and we see China as much as I don't know the exact truth on China. I hear people like Donica tell me that China is leading the way with green energy. I hear other people to say that they're building 2 coal-fired power stations every week or month or something. I keep hearing
84 a year.
84 a year. So where should we be sitting on this green spectrum, Stephen?
Well, I certainly hope I can answer that. But first of all, can I just say, lovely to be with you again. And I understand that you're getting an office in the West Wing because, you know, your access is pretty damned impressive, I've got to say. Look, I also find something slightly odd. Firstly, I mean, to be honest, as a Briton, I find it slightly offensive that the President of the United States is lecturing us on how we should actually be operating our own economy. And I also find it extremely strange. I'm not the most sort of red in tooth and claw capitalist, but I think if America is self-sufficient in energy, which it is for a whole range of reasons, many geographical, you know, surely why do they want us to be self-sufficient when at the moment we're buying oil from them? I would have thought that they'd be delighted if we weren't actually, you know, drilling our own oil. But for me, the key thing here is we can either go back to the past or we can go forward to the future. If we go back to the past, squeezing the last few drops of oil and gas out of the last 2 explored fields in the North Sea, then all we're doing is simply putting off the inevitable. We're not going to have energy self-sufficiency. We're not going to get the Russian boot off our necks. We're not going to actually have that own security that we need in this country. Now, you've actually, not for the first time, absolutely put your finger on it. Is it short-term pain for long-term gain? made. Well, it doesn't have to be, and I think which is why Andy Burnham is being the great pragmatist. He's saying, yeah, OK, there are a few drops of oil we can squeeze out of the jackdaw on the other field there. But in the meantime, what we have to look is at an energy mix. And there are, there's wind, there's power, there's solar, there's hydroelectric, there's a whole range of things. And there's been occasions in this country in the last 6 months when all of our energy has actually been produced from sustainable sources. That's the way forward for the future. British energy for British people produced in Britain. And as for China, look at China. They are cloaking the hills and the mountains with solar panels. You used to say you can see the Great Wall of China from outer space. You can see the great reflecting mirror of solar panels from outer space now. So they are actually massively moved. They are not building coal-fired power stations. So let's go forward to green, clean, cheap energy, rather than going backwards to squeezing the last drop out of the North Sea.
David Moore, which way do we go, forwards or backwards?
Well, we need to go forwards, Bev, and I'm really glad President Trump mentioned Aberdeen, because we just had a parliamentary by-election
which you won.
which the Conservatives did win indeed. And it was a de facto referendum on net zero, and the people of Aberdeen said, drill, baby, drill. They want cheaper energy bills. The SNP government in Scotland, despite the fact they want to be independent of the union, don't want to fund all their ludicrous policies by drilling. They don't believe in it. They believe in the net zero project. We need to drill. Oil in the North Sea, as it is, produces £4.5 billion a year in tax receipts. Imagine the reserves we can tap into now. I do agree with Stephen, we have to have a good energy mix, but we need energy security. We cannot afford to be importing parts for solar and wind turbines from China where they're made with slave labour. We need to start making it here. The last time we opened a nuclear reactor in Britain was under John Major in the 1990s. We need to start making nuclear. We need to start being self-reliant again.
How can you be self-reliant on nuclear?
Donica, let me give the last word to you.
Yeah, we can't. How can we be self-sufficient in nuclear when we have to import the uranium? And nuclear power is around 3 times more expensive than green energy. It takes us down an old route that's inefficient. I think there's a very exciting thing here for Britain. We've got cheaper energy. We've got loads of solar, and what we need to be doing is bringing down our bills and removing the privatisation levies from the bills.
OK, Donica McCarthy, thank you so much for joining us to tell us why you think the President was wrong today. Thank you very much. Moving on. Now, let me know what you think. GBNews.com/your say. Still to come this evening on The Late Show Live.
Diese Nachrichten zu bekommen, dass beim CSD ein Auto reingerast ist, ein Mann in einem Auto. Und was auch für mich schockierend war, das Erste, was ich gedacht habe, war, hoffentlich ist es kein Kanake, hoffentlich ist es eine christliche weiße Person, aber es war es nicht.
A German woman there in the aftermath of an Islamist terror attack saying that she wished the suspect was a white Christian. I'm going to be speaking to President Trump's counter-terror chief about that and so much more next. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
Because you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis, in the car,
in the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again to start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question.
Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way.
You will not want to miss it, trust me. The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Here at GB News, we made a promise to tell your stories. And on the 6th of August, we're marking 5 years of doing exactly that.
Celebrate with us by having your say. Join in the debates live on TV and radio.
And meeting your favourite presenters across the country, from Leeds to Aberdeen, from Belfast to Barry Island.
Plus, join me in Essex for our biggest live show of the year. Scan the QR code or visit gbnews.com/celebrate. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live. Do get involved this evening, won't you? gbnews.com/your say. But I'm talking now to the Deputy Assistant to President Donald Trump and Senior Director for Counterterrorism at the US National Security Council, Sebastian Gorka. Seb Gorka, always a pleasure and an honour to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Now, there's a lot we can talk about here, but why don't we talk about the Berlin terror attack? We saw before the break a woman online who was saying she really hoped this wasn't a foreign national, and she was a liberal thinker, a left-wing woman who was saying she didn't hope that was the case because it would play into the narrative that terrorism is always committed by Islamists. Well, guess what? Her hopes were dashed because it was. Were you surprised, Seb?
No, because when we do counterterrorism in the President Trump administration, we actually look at the real threats. We don't allow politics or political correctness to infect our intelligence analysis, as occurred under Obama and occurred under sleepy Joe Biden. We were told for years under Joe Biden that white, and I know this sounds absolutely insane, but you know, if you don't believe me, go and look. We were told by the commander-in-chief, by his head of the CIA, by his FBI director, the greatest threat to America is white supremacists. Well, white supremacists didn't try and kill President Trump on multiple occasions. White supremacists didn't try and firebomb a federal facility in New York a couple of days ago. White supremacists didn't kill my friend Charlie Kirk. Even a left-wing think tank, the CSIS in DC, in its recent study said, yeah, the game's up. We have to admit, left-wing violent extremism, terrorism is in the ascendancy. That's why my immediate boss, between me and the president, Secretary Rubio, the National Security Advisor, held a 66-state ministerial last week on the threat of left-wing terrorism, because we look at the world as it is and we deal with the real threats, Bev.
I was at the briefing for that day, Dr. Gorka, and I think what I was struck by was the idea that it's quite difficult to define left-wing terrorism. When we talk about jihadis, we know what they stand for, we know what they want. Can you help our viewers understand how you can define the idea of left-wing terrorism and what kind of ideologies get swept up into that vortex?
Yeah, great question. So this is a very different enemy from Al-Qaeda or ISIS. They don't have a Shura council. They don't have a council of war like the provisional IRA does. There's no centralized chain of command. What this is disparate, radical actors, whether it's Antifa, whether it's anarchists, whether it's the, down with immigration and border control lunatics, who have one thing in common, and this is really all you need to know: they hate everything that's good. They hate nation states. they hate borders, they hate traditional values, whether it's the nuclear family, whether it's pride in your nation. If you want to find the one connective tissue, it's they hate the West. These are the anarchists, the Antifa groups that are just basically the rehash of what we saw in the 1920s with the anarchists, and then the Weather Underground and the lunatic left in the 60s. They're back. But with my colleagues, with Stephen Miller, the Homeland Security Advisor, with Kash Patel at the FBI, the Acting Attorney General, Todd Blanche, we are taking the fight to them so that all Americans can be safe, irrespective of who you voted for. We're not here to protect one side or the other. We're here to stop the radical left.
The issue of Iran continues, and I know that there have been some reports as well today about threats potentially against Melania, the president's, the First Lady, of course, the president's wife, and their son Baron. And also in the UK, there are concerns about Iranian sleeper cells, potentially people that might have come across on boats illegally. We've had 700 people come across the water alone today in the UK. How worried should British people be, Seb, about the threat from Iran on our own shores?
Well, look, I am responsible not only for counterterrorism in the National Security Council, but also for what we call counter-lethal plotting. So any of these attempts, these plots, these aspirational desires by Iran against President, cabinet members, the First Lady, senior military, former government employees, we are disrupting them, taking them deadly seriously. Why? Because this is a regime on death's door. They are grasping at straws because of what we've done to them under Operation Epic Fury. So they are lashing out, but we are not going to allow them to implement those dastardly plans in the United States or against our interests. My advice to the UK is my advice to every Western nation. You don't have a country without borders, and you need to take threats seriously. As a survivor of the Holocaust once said, when a group of people repeatedly call for your death, sooner or later you should take them seriously. That goes for the Nazis of the Third Reich, that went for the Soviet Union during the Cold War, and that goes for jihadists today, whether they are Sunni jihadists like Al-Qaeda, those responsible for 7/7 and 9/11, or whether they are Shiite extremists such as the Iranian regime.
Washington, D.C. itself is very well protected at the moment. Obviously, you had some special guests in town yesterday with Netanyahu and President Zelensky. There's quite a noticeable security presence, obviously, on a day like yesterday. But how concerned is the president about the terrorist threat that might hang over this country at the moment?
Over the United States, deadly serious. I mean, all viewers, it's unclassified, and all the GB News viewers can go and check it out right now. 2 months ago, signed the brand new United States counterterrorism strategy. I poured 26 years of my life into 16 pages. You can read right there how we have identified the 3 major threat groups. Number 1, the cartels. Number 2, the legacy jihadi groups. And number 3, the left-wing violent extremists like Antifa, like the anarchists. And, with my colleagues, we work every single day that God gives us to make sure that we disrupt, we identify the actors, and we disrupt their plots before they occur. Go to Kash Patel, my friend, the FBI director's X account, and see, after we disrupt them, after we can talk about them publicly, all of the plots that we have prevented from occurring because we have 17 intelligence agencies, we have superb men and women at the FBI, and we have the best intelligence capacities the world has ever seen. So we are taking them very, very seriously, Bev.
And are you winning?
Oh, let me give you just 2 stats that I can say publicly. Since the president was sworn in for a second time on January the 20th, 2025, we have terminated permanently 1,061 jihadists across the globe. That's outside of the Iranian campaign. We've killed over 1,000 jihadists, and as important, if not more important, without spending $1 in ransom money, we have brought home 106 U.S. hostages who are back home with their loved ones. Because if you're wise, you're afraid of President Trump, because he is about peace through strength, and he's about America first, and that applies to all Americans.
Well, he's very fortunate to have you in that role, Dr. Gorka. Dr. Sebastian Gorka, the Director for Counterterrorism at the US National Security and Deputy Assistant to President Trump. Thank you so much. Seb, I will see you soon. Thank you. Right, my panel are still here, but I think we have to take a little quick break now. So, still to come this evening on The Late Show Live.
I will invoke my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution to refrain from answering your questions. Thank you.
Oh, it was an extraordinary showdown on Capitol Hill. A former, of course, COVID advisor, the man who made himself the doctor of the world, invoked the Fifth Amendment more than 100 times. What is he hiding from? This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question.
Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way.
You will not want to miss it, trust me. The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Keep your comments coming this evening at gbnews.com/your say. Now, it was quite the day on Capitol Hill this morning, bright and early. Anthony Fauci, famous for his time as one of the White House coronavirus task force, the guy basically. He was head of all of the decisions that were made during that time, during the COVID time, repeatedly refused to answer questions about any of the decisions around COVID, and particularly about the origin of COVID. He invoked the Fifth Amendment more than 100 times.
Given Senator Paul's obvious obsession with calling for my prosecution, his repeated slanderous comments about me, and recently his publicly releasing my unredacted personal diary, any reasonable person who has followed his unhinged obsession with me would readily come to the same conclusion. I will invoke my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution to refrain from answering your questions. Thank you.
There was an audible gasp from the room when he first said that. No wonder his hands were shaking. Senator Rand Paul, who has made it his life's work for the last 6 years, frankly, to get questions answered honestly, was accused of trying to put him behind bars by some Democrat senators. Lawmakers threatened to hold Fauci in contempt of Congress. Now, Republicans claim that Fauci concealed key information about the pandemic and the Wuhan lab leak. Allegations, of course, that he has consistently denied. During the hearing, President Trump took to social media to brand Fauci's ideas as crazy, and he also commented on it this afternoon in the Oval Office as well. Let me go to my panel on this. Hillary, let me come to you first, because I know that Richard is delighted we're talking about this, because I think, I'm paraphrasing, but I think you think Fauci's a good guy at the moment, but we'll get to that.
Yes.
As a Brit living here,
yeah,
I'm sure you remember 6 years ago very clearly.
Vividly.
Why does it matter? Because people at home will be going, oh, it's just COVID, move on. Why does it matter that we have answers to some of these key questions?
Well, first of all, over 1 million Americans died. So a lot of people died. And at the same time, he was actually glorifying all of his appearances. He was actually ecstatic from his diaries, which, by the way, were on an American government computer. So he kept his diaries on a government computer. So that is actually public knowledge, which he's also denying. But also now that he was pardoned, it means that all of his testimony actually is in the public record, because he's already had that pardon. So we should actually be able to have all this material. So he was glorifying, and I was excited that he was on InStyle magazine. He was basically photographed by the pool.
And this is what we know from the diaries now, is what you're saying, the newly unredacted diaries.
Exactly, unredacted diaries, and again, this is public information. So why is it important? Well, not only did 1 million Americans die, he is now actually put down in an American government computer that what he was saying publicly is contradictory to what actually was in those diaries. So it wasn't the wet market.
Yeah.
It was the Wuhan labs. He actually says that. He also knew that.
And why does that matter? That matters because of the funding.
The American government was funding this, and they knew that. So that was part of the issue as well. And then also look at the things that the government did and how absolutely ludicrous it was. When I knew this was ridiculous was if the government had really cared about our health, the first thing they would have done would be ban all junk food, ban all refined sugar, ban all alcohol. No, you were able to go into stores, you could buy all the junk food you want. Oh my goodness, you couldn't go into a restaurant, but you could go and you could be in a grocery shop. So much of it was hypocritical. They closed certain states, they didn't close other states, masks on certain people or not. And so the bottom line is all of his diaries contradict what he said publicly.
Yes, and that's the question, Richard. And I think it was appalling that he didn't take the opportunity today to be honest with the American public.
Right.
Why couldn't he answer questions for something that is so significant that casts a shadow over us all still today, 6 years later?
For a couple of reasons. First, it's clear, just like Donald Trump has prosecuted James Comey because he took a picture of some shells in the sand, he's out to get his political enemies, and he sees Fauci, regrettably and unfortunately, as one of those people.
Now, hang on, that's just psychology. You're just trying to read the president's mind.
Well, he said it.
But he worked with Trump.
He put what he thought was a direct message to Pam Bondi in Twitter, where he basically said, "Get these people." Now, this is not a question of reading his mind. He's said it, and I don't think there's any doubt about it.
But Fauci's nothing to Trump now. Fauci's nobody to Trump.
Nor
He's
is
no
James
threat to
Comey.
him.
No is John
let's
Brennan.
keep it on the issue. I'll keep it on the issue. That man made decisions which we had to follow in the UK.
Yes.
That man made all the decisions, and our health ministers and were following what Fauci was saying. It matters. Was he seduced by the money, the fame, the attention?
Yes.
We know from the diary, did that affect the messaging he was giving the world? Yes, it did.
Ask anybody in every administration until the current one, and I literally including Trump's, back to 30 years before, Anthony Fauci was the go-to person on infectious diseases. Donald Trump could have done something about sugar. Donald Trump was president. He could have done something about fat in food. He chose not to. Okay? So you can't lay that at Fauci.
Well, Fauci wasn't doing anything either.
Well, the fact of the matter is, I think he was glorified. Ask George W. Bush, okay? I mean, again, you can dismiss these people, but every presidential administration going back for at least 30 years, I think starting with Reagan's, because of AIDS, Anthony Fauci was the go-to guy. That having been said, Donald Trump used the Fifth Amendment to not testify in a deposition over 400 times. This is not like a novel use of the Fifth Amendment. You're not confessing anything by using...
This is about the American people. It's about the people all over the world. And if he was involved, if he knew about the origin of the virus...
He didn't know. Again, it was a theory. It was a theory. And look, here we are 6 years later. If he knew something, there would be indisputable evidence that it was...
There is, and Biden pardoned him.
Well, I'm just saying.
Biden gave him a pardon.
I don't think the leading scientists in the world
Why would
concede
him?
Because Trump made it clear he was going after him. There was no doubt about it.
So he pardoned him what? Because he didn't want Trump to eke out justice on him?
Because he thought that Anthony Fauci was a glorious public servant, and that having Donald Trump go after him was wrong.
Come
and he shouldn't spend money on...
Oh, come on.
Yeah,
because Biden thought he was a glorious public servant.
As did George W. Bush, as did Obama, and so forth.
More fool them, because we saw his true colours today. If he was a glorious public servant, he wouldn't have been sat there $12 million richer today, with his diary revealing how excited he was by all of the attention, with his involvement in the Wuhan laboratory and the funding of that through NIAID, and he's still not answering the questions about it. It stinks, and it's letting every American down.
Let me just say one thing. Anthony Fauci was not the Wizard of Oz. He was not like singularly responsible. Yes, he was on the top of the pyramid, but there are hundreds of people that work for him. If they really want to get to the bottom of the data and the information about the lab versus the marketplace, that's out there. It's not like uniquely in his head. So that's why this was a charade.
Oh, but it was. But it was, and that's what we know from the emails. We know that from the chain.
That he alone in the world knew something that nobody else of the billions of people on the planet knew? I don't think that's true.
No, there's a Mancunian.
We didn't fund it.
There's a Mancunian called Peter Daszak who was working with EcoHealth Alliance, with Fauci on this. All of this is public record. But they shut it down. They controlled the narrative. It's quite obvious from all of the emails that he was suppressing evidence to the contrary because it didn't fit the narrative.
Well, you were bad. People were cut off from Twitter at that point. They were actually blocked.
I was one of them.
Yeah.
Anyway,
raised any other issues?
Yeah. Let me know what you think at home. GBNews.com/your say. Do you feel like you have the answers that you think you deserve? Right. Still to come this evening on The Late Show Live.
Today I feel gay.
Pressure is piling on FIFA President Gianni Infantino to stop his plans to sell the World Cup to private investors. Also on the show tonight.
I will commit in my time in office to get the number of young people who are not in education, employment or training down.
The government could now be giving firms that offer teenagers work placements a better chance of winning public contracts. You on board with that? Don't go anywhere. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News breakfast is there. With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again.
To start your day just right. GB News breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Britain is not just a geographical expression. We are a people bound together by history and culture that are distinctively British. Join me to celebrate our music, theatre, artworks and literature, which we can explore and enjoy together.
Everybody's welcome.
Sunday with Michael Portillo. Every Sunday at 11 a.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're
the failure is...
deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. More news this evening. The government could give firms that offer teenagers extended work placements a better chance of winning public contracts. The Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, says that companies providing 6-week placements or apprenticeships could benefit from greater social value weighting during the procurement process. He says the plans are designed to give more young people practical experience, improve opportunities and help tackle youth unemployment. Let me go to my London boys about this, shall I, as well? And my London panel is this evening Stephen Pound and David Moore, and of course Hilary and Richard are still here as well. Stephen, let me come to you on this. This is kind of just another example of ESG, isn't it? Environmental and social governance. Companies have got to do well to be able to get these contracts. But I'm all right with this. I don't mind giving opportunities to the youngsters.
Bev, would you allow me, and I appreciate this is breaches of the rules here, but would you allow me just quickly come back on the Fauci one, very, very quickly?
Sure.
Yeah, look, I have to say, I mean, most people in this country, what we know about the Fifth Amendment is from gangster films from the 50s, where you get some guy with a Sicilian accent saying, I refuse to, answer that question on the ground that it might incriminate me. And I find it extraordinary that this Fifth Amendment on the right not to incriminate yourself is actually being prayed in. But the key thing is, just to answer your question, why does it matter? It matters massively because the whole way we respond to future pandemics has now been set with a template back in 2020. And if we get Ebola, we get Marburg virus, whatever it is, we've now got a complete system, a mechanism in place for that element of state control, which is almost unbelievable. So it does matter. And whether Fauci was being honest with himself or not, that really, really does matter. And I'm sorry, David, to cut across. We'll come back to the other thing in a minute.
We might discuss this in the last hour as well a little bit, because I've done a little bit of behind the scenes on what happened today. But back to Andy Burnham and his opportunity for young people, David. With you being a young person, David, let me ask you about this. Do you like this idea?
Well, this is a classic example of Labour attempting to fix the mess they created in the first place. And Andy Burnham, who was indeed a minister under the Blair and Gordon Brown regimes, decided to send every young person to universities, including universities that should have never been universities, drain skills and make people just all go to university to chase jobs that didn't exist, to create jobs that should have been created, and in the process we had a deficit of important skills. The Conservative government before introduced T-levels, technical levels, and there was a lot of plans to extend this, and Andy Burnham's come in and just said, well, we'll do some more of these technical skills. But at the end of the day, the problem is when Tony Blair said we'll send everyone to university, we are facing the dire consequences now where we're using immigration to fill the jobs that Brits should be doing, whether it be student doctors all the way to delivery drivers. And now we're facing the consequences of this, and I think what Andy Burnham is proposing is too little, too late.
I think that this may come as a bit of a shock to some people, but not everything that Tony Blair did was absolutely marvellous and wonderful. Every once in a while, even Homer nods, and he actually did make the odd mistake. The idea of actually prioritising academic over vocational training to the extent of having over 50% of the people studying academics was wrong, quite clearly wrong. And I think that the Tories, to be fair, did actually come back, with technical colleges, and I think we are moving in that direction. So there's nothing wrong as far as I can see.
Yeah, it's a mess, though, isn't it? Hang on a minute, Stephen. Sorry to interrupt you. I want to hear from Hilary. Go on.
You're the boss.
The issue at hand here is, first of all, number one, no one in the Labour government has actually had any business experience. So when you mandate such things to business, it isn't as beneficial as lowering the tax rate. Right now, every 45 minutes, a millionaire leaves the UK. So those that are building businesses, those that are investing, are leaving and departing. They're the very people that hire the youth, that bring them in. Now, it's more cost prohibitive to bring in young people. Why? Because all the minimum wage has been raised. When people don't run businesses, they think that money comes out of the sky. They don't realise how to make payroll and how you actually run a business. That's the issue at hand. So what he needs to do is actually focus on all that will incentivise businesses and have businesses grow, and then they'll be able to hire the young people, instead of putting on more mandates that are likely actually to, ironically, drive more businesses away, and there'll be less jobs in the long run.
And should a company take on youngsters just because they're going to get something out of it, Richard, or should they do it out of the goodness of their hearts?
I don't see it's criminal. Look, we all know that the economy is changing, that technology is taking over various sectors, and to have young people be kind of adapted to what it is that the needs are of the future doesn't strike me as a bad thing. And could you send them to tech schools or whatnot? Of course, but this doesn't seem like a horrible way to do it.
No. More to come in the next hour. Thank you, folks, including this.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to the latest weather update from the Met Office. Here on GB News, a cooler feel for many today. Still pretty warm across the southeast in the sunny spells. Fresh breeze and a fair few showers coming in across Scotland. Some showers also for Northern Ireland, especially across the northern half, and the odd shower for Northern England too. Quite a bit more cloud compared to yesterday across the Midlands, southwest England, South Wales. One or two light showers just drifting through, but nothing really useful for gardeners. And a bit more of that cloud just spilling into the southeast through the day, so it won't be as sunny here, won't be as hot either, but still quite warm at 28 Celsius. Cooler conditions further north, and certainly feeling pretty chilly with the rain across northern Scotland, which will actually be quite heavy at times here for Orkney, Caithness, Sutherland down into Aberdeenshire. Quite a wet afternoon. Elsewhere, the showers will move through across central and southern Scotland with a fairly brisk breeze, and there'll be some bright spells, particularly across the borders. Some sunny spells too for Northern Ireland. Just a few showers, mostly across the north, and some of those will feed into Cumbria as well. But much of England and Wales looking dry and sunny this afternoon, but a much cloudier afternoon, certainly compared to recent days across the southeast and East Anglia. Again, a little bit of light rain, but nothing for the gardeners that's of any use. And that'll tend to clear away slowly overnight. We'll keep some showers coming into the north and the west. A much fresher night, much cooler night, much more comfortable night. Temperatures across northern parts down into single figures, well down in some rural spots. So a much cooler, fresher start to Friday. Another fine and sunny day by and large. Could start quite cloudy across Kent in particular. The clouds should break up here. There'll be some showers coming in across northwest England, again the north of Northern Ireland and western Scotland. But elsewhere, most places dry, plenty of sunshine across the south. But instead of temperatures in the mid-30s, temperatures more likely to be back in the mid-20s. So it is turning cooler.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again. To start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter? So that's a very live question. Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way. You will not want to miss it, trust me.
The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country. There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor. Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Very good evening, good morning, live from Washington, D.C. This is Bev Turner on GB News with the stories shaping Great Britain and America tonight.
Any reasonable person who has followed his unhinged obsession with me would readily come to the same conclusion.
Yeah, no wonder his hands were shaking. Anthony Fauci, of course, cast himself as the doctor of the world, lashing out there as Senator Rand Paul today in a blockbuster showdown for answers in Capitol Hill. First thing this morning, also tonight.
Well, he did say one very good thing. He said he's going to open up North Sea oil.
President Trump telling me about his conversation with our new Prime Minister Andy Burnham, praising the fact that he said he's going to reopen North Sea oil. Plus, tonight.
They're coming from all over the world. They're coming from Africa. They're coming from South America. They're coming from different parts of Asia. And they're invading Europe. I mean, they're invading Europe. It's an invasion. And the UK is a prime suspect.
700 illegal migrants arrive in the UK just today. President Trump sounds the alarm over the impact of migration in Europe also tonight.
I would love reconciliation with my family. There's no point in continuing to fight anymore.
King Charles is reportedly prepared to offer Harry a room at Buckingham Palace during his trip to the UK in September. But he'll be on his own because nobody else lives there. There you go, you can have one bedroom in a house of 100. Is that welcoming his son back to the UK? I'm Bev Turner. That's really tickled me. This is The Late Show Live. Let me know your thoughts this evening, won't you? I've got Hilary is with me tonight, and Richard, and in London we've got David and Stephen. But earlier today, I was at the White House where I asked President Trump, oh, there they are. Hello, Stephen. I was at the White House where I asked President Trump whether he spoke to Andy Burnham about the growing migrant crisis facing the UK. Here's what he said.
I did, briefly. He's going to have to mention it because it's killing your country.
Mr. President,
killing you.
He won't talk to GBNews.
He's killing your country.
He won't talk to us.
And not him. I mean, we'll have to see. I know Starmer did very little about it. And they're coming from all over the world. They're coming from Africa. They're coming from South America. They're coming from different parts of Asia. And they're invading Europe. I mean, they're invading Europe. It's an invasion. And the UK is a prime suspect.
The President there this afternoon telling me that illegal migration is killing the UK and Europe. But Andy Burnham's remarks paint a rather different picture.
Boat crossings are down quite significantly year on year, so that does suggest that the plan is working. Of course, there has to be rigorous checks so that people are not put through into a situation where they are out without the relevant safeguards, and absolutely I can give you a commitment that that is the clear instruction that I am giving.
Let's speak now to former Labour MP Graham Jones. Graham, thank you so much for joining us on The Late Show Live. It's the one topic that he's been a bit tardy to come and tackle. And when he talks about it there, for such a good communicator, such a smooth operator, he looks like he's struggling to find his words. Why is that?
Well, I'd make a couple of points. First of all, good evening, Bev. A couple of points is he's reappointed.
Oh, I think we've lost Graham. He's frozen there. Let's see if we can get him back. He's back. Let's bring him back. Yeah. Graham Jones, are you back?
Sorry about that. Yeah, he's appointed Shabana Mahmood, and I think that's a big statement in and of itself. I think it's a very, very difficult issue. The fact that he supports her and supports her policies, and he said so. And he's made some comments about the chap, the Rochdale leader, a grooming gang leader who should be booted out of the country. I think he's been quite assertive on this. I think boat crossings are down. He's making an effort. He understands what the British people want. I just think that he is going in the right direction. But it's a very, very difficult issue to fix when you've got people acting illegally and finding ways and means to get into the country, you know. So, yeah, so far.
Is he trying to get that balance right, though, Graham? Because he's obviously enjoying this Burnham bounce at the moment in relation to the polls and in relation to the Reform Party. And he knows this is going to be the issue that Reform voters want to see him act upon. However, he's got backbenchers who are not as upset about illegal migration as a Reform voter. And he's got many voters, in fact, that would vote for him, and people that support his party who don't like the conversation around illegal migration and our desire to stop it. Is he going to struggle on this topic if he can't work out how strong he needs to be in terms of the rhetoric?
Well, I think he's been very strong so far. I mean, we've got the strongest Home Secretary we've had in decades on immigration in Shabana Mahmood. So he's been very, very strong. Whether it's strong enough is the ultimate question. Strong enough for the British public who want to see some action on this. But I think so far he's not
Oh, I think we've lost Graham again. I think we're struggling with that connection. I presume Graham's up north. If you're up north, Graham, can you make sure that your Prime Minister fixes your Wi-Fi in the north of the country? He's going to be the land of milk and honey, isn't it, eventually? Let me go to my panel in London on this. Stephen Pound and David are there to respond to what we heard there from our Prime Minister. David Moore, let me come to you first. I think on this topic, as I said there, we know he's a slick communicator, Andy Burnham, but he looked kind of nervous, like he was finding the next word. He knows there's a lot of people hanging on his every word when it comes to illegal migration. Did he get it right?
Well, I think Andy Burnham is unwilling to tackle the root cause of illegal migration. They are a majority of men coming from countries who want to cash in of our overly generous welfare system, in fact exploit our overly generous welfare system, be smuggled via criminal gangs in the process, and use immigration law and exploit immigration law to stay here, citing ECHR and human rights. Now, Andy Burnham's worldview is ultimately internationalist, and his worldview is that we can live in international law and everyone and everything will be happy. We'll hand over the Chagos Islands, we'll hand over our sovereignty, and like Lord Hermer in the Starmer government, he believes in that worldview. And he will not tackle the root cause of illegal migration, which is to leave the ECHR, to make some difficult decisions there, control our borders. So he is nervous. He doesn't know how to... Well, actually, he knows how to solve the problem, but it's not with his ideology and worldview, and it's not with his voters either, because, frankly, Andy Burnham knows that the more people can bring over here, the more Labour voters he can exploit. Even though a lot of them are not voting Labour, they're voting Green.
Yeah, Stephen, is it fair to say, though, if Andy Burnham was really serious about this, he'd do something about our very generous benefits and the very generous way we look after people like those we're looking at the screen now who get off a boat and are handed keys to a lovely hotel room?
Well, look, hang on a second. There's a few things here. First of all, benefits are much higher in Germany and France, so it's not purely that issue of that. Secondly, the ECHR is absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with it. All these present cases are all to do with British judges, second and third tier tribunal judges, making, in my opinion, some very perverse decisions. But look, here's the interesting thing about today. There's the thing, I don't know much about American football, but they do have this thing called flooding the field. And what these people smugglers are doing, they're actually operating over a 100-mile distance from north of Dieppe to the south of Calais. And what they're doing is they're launching all their boats at the same time to try to flood the field, to actually make it impossible for us to the French police to actually stop them, because the French police are actually stopping it at the moment. So what's happening is that they're actually very desperate at the moment. But net migration, legal and illegal, is down by 80% since admittedly from the very high Boris wave. And the figures of the people coming across are very, very much lower. However, until we actually stop that awful sight of those boats overloaded with 150 people the other day on one of those RIBs. As soon as we stop that, nobody in this country will believe that we put a stop to it. And what we are doing now, finally, is actually processing the cases quicker and exporting people. And it was lovely to see my old mate Graham Jones. Jonesy and I were actually in Romania together years ago, talking about this very thing, about repatriation deals. In fact, the minister we dealt with turned out to be Elena Stasi, the former tennis player. And it was just fascinating occasion, but of no interest whatsoever to the rest of the world. Anyway, so we are getting a grip on it, but as long as we have that awful image, then we all know that this is... And I think if Andy was nervous, it's because this is a third-rail issue. You touch it at your peril. It is visceral with people, and I think there are people, particularly, you're originally a Mancunian, although you scrub up well, and he's obviously from Hindburn, Graham Jones. And the reality is, if you talk to those people, not just in the northwest, but throughout the country, it is still a visceral issue, and it's something that we have to address. All I would say is, Bev, we are addressing it, and it is actually improving, but too slowly.
The fact that it's a visceral issue, as you say, you can see the nervousness when he talks about it, because he knows he's walking across a field of landmines, doesn't he? And any minute now, one's going to go off and it's going to be a reform-shaped bomb that was going to, make him plunge in the polls. That's the concern that he has, understandably, and he should have that concern. But given that it is so important, shouldn't he have been straight out of the blocks on it? Because it just sort of speaks to a kind of a cowardice that he's not got involved in this topic until now, Stephen.
So he's been a Prime Minister for 9 days. His big thing has been about integrated social care. He can't actually to actually cover every single particular issue in that 9 days. Of course it's important, but on the other hand...
This is the issue. This is the issue.
Well, no, I mean, some would say the health services, and I would say what he said is the cost of living crisis is the biggest issue facing us today. And, you know, also the war, energy security, the cost of power. There's all these other big, big issues. I mean, Shabana Mahmood is doing a damn good job about this, but she's not doing it but by just simply mouthing platitudes about stopping the boats and coming up with insane schemes like Rwanda. She's actually working with the French police and the Dutch police and the Belgian police to actually have some successes. And we have got some successes. But as I said, it's not enough yet. All I can say is that we are on the right track, and they are actually reducing. That figure of 700 people, don't forget it was over 1,000 people set off. But only 700 got here because the French, God love them, sent back 300 of them. Not enough, but it's something.
Yeah, David, what would success look like for Andy Burnham in this area? What would the British public be happy with? A reduction of 10%, 50%, down to 0?
We need not just 0, but in order to get to 0, he needs to enforce the treaties. We had the Shadow Home Secretary on the beaches in France today speaking to the gendarmerie, who are essentially ushering these migrants towards Britain. They're saying we're under orders, we have this treaty with France, but the French are not cooperating. We have an extradition treaty with Pakistan, but we couldn't even deport a mass grooming gang rapist from this country, despite having an extradition treaty with Pakistan. So the Prime Minister needs to get real, enforce the treaties, tell France to stop ushering migrants to us, because they know we're the last stop on the tube line. They don't want them in France, so they shift them off to us. And the French police need to be cooperating with Britain, because we're paying the French millions of pounds of taxpayers' money to help us to tackle this problem. So he needs to enforce the treaties.
Let's have a quick look at Chris Philp here in France and what happened there. Let's have a watch of this.
Je suis un député dans le Parlement du Royaume-Uni. Why have you allowed the migrants into the water? Why haven't you stopped them?
Pourquoi on les stoppe pas? Pourquoi on les stoppe pas? Our order is to let them go like that.
Your order is to let them go?
We just have to say to them, don't do that, it's dangerous.
So your orders are not to intervene?
We have to protect them.
Well, there's also protecting the border as well.
Oh, that's damning, isn't it? Honestly, Stephen, let me come to you on this. I mean, it's so shocking. I guess they didn't know who Chris Philp was, did they, there when they were talking to him? But that's really shocking that they're just saying, well, we could just let them go. Why can't we send Brits there? Why can't we send our soldiers there to say, no, you're not going in the water, you're just not?
Well, don't forget, there have been occasions when the French gendarmerie have actually stabbed one of these RIBs with a knife and sunk it off the shore. And they are up in Gravelines the other day. They actually dragged 3 of them back onto the land. So I think that particular officer...
Why did you do with all of them then?
Well, who is that particular officer? Is he speaking for the gendarmerie? Is he speaking for the prefecture? Is he speaking actually, for the Quai d'Orsay? I mean, I don't know. All I can say is that his comment was...
All he's doing is stood there while a load of migrants are paddling up to their knees. Well, it doesn't really matter who he is, does it?
Well, it does. It depends for whom he is speaking. All I can say was that remarkably unhelpful from the perspective of people like me who actually think that we are working slowly getting a grip on what was an impossibly out-of-control situation, which, don't forget, Chris Philp was actually the immigration minister who did nothing whatsoever to actually reduce the number. The numbers were exponentially increasing on his watch. So I think he's got a bit of a cheek here.
He has got a cheek. He's Shadow Home Secretary, isn't he, now, of course.
Ex-immigration
and this is an absolute win, David. It's ex-immigration minister. And it's very clever, this, David. I mean, you shouldn't be winning politics via social media, but these are the times in which we live, right? I mean, he's just undermined so much of the work that Shabana Mahmood is doing or is trying to do by that one video.
This is not an isolated case, and what Chris has highlighted so well is one of the many instances where the gendarmerie, who, by the way, are a military force, they're funded by the French Defence Ministry, they're not just standard provincial police, they are military police, and there's been many times where they have sat there, they said, well, we've been told to just say, well, maybe not do it, but bon voyage, off to Britain you go. There's been other cases where laymen people have just gone up to the police, seen the migrants on the beach and said, what are you going to do about it? And they have done little to nothing. It is not in France's interest to keep these migrants here. So what is it? Countries act in their own selfish self-interest. We've learnt that with many parts of foreign policy now.
Yeah.
And what has happened is the French are like, well, Britain are paying us money, but we're just going to keep sending them to Britain anyway. They're taking us for fools.
And
that is this government.
Why
exactly.
would they not? Why would they not? They've got enough already. They have got enough illegal migrants that they don't know what to do with. They're just like, ta-ra, au revoir, have a nice life. Right, I have to say au revoir to you two for a minute as well. Stephen and David, thank you so much. You think at home, gbnews.com/your say. Your messages are coming in, particularly about Anthony Fauci today and what you thought of that exchange. But still to come. On The Late Show Live, the conflict between America and Iran continues to escalate as Tehran launched fresh military attacks on American military bases in Jordan, as well as 3 tankers in the Strait of Hormuz. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News. Hope you enjoyed that little trail. There was no break there. Right. As I was saying, the conflict between America and Iran has escalated, and I'm joined in the studio now by Jonathan Sayer, research analyst for the Foundation for the Defence of Democracies, to tell me all about it. Jonathan, it's always a pleasure to see you, but I really wish I wasn't seeing you. Don't take that personally, because we really wanted all of this sorted out by now. What is the very latest?
We saw a preemptive wave of attacks from Tehran against U.S. assets. This time around, you can see the Islamic Republic's calculation is very clear. They think they have the upper hand. They think they can impose more political costs. But the most important angle here is the fact that the United States has reimposed the naval blockade against the regime means this status quo is not benefiting them anymore, which is why they're trying to get the United States to more or less provide compromises so this situation can resolve itself, because how it's going right now is definitely not in Tehran's favor.
President Trump was saying today that they are desperate, that they are losing money, that they want to make a deal. I had Dr. Seb Gorka on just earlier saying that they are in the kind of death throes, and in fact that raises the terrorist threat, because they do want to cause harm around the world and as much disruption as possible. How much are they in the death throes, though? Can we put any kind of sense of how long they've got left to keep fighting back?
Well, when it comes to their military capabilities, it's about short-range missiles. They still have a sufficient amount left, which is why they're able to threaten the Strait and attack our allies, which is why this campaign and the response from the president, especially in the recent weeks, I want to say, has been mostly centered around degrading that military capability. It's more or less an external bombing campaign. Whereas in reality, if you want to maintain your leverage against such a regime, the economy paired with anything internal, so communicating to the Iranian people, trying to see one way or another whether these strikes can actually degrade the regime's repression capabilities. We're not there yet, and I think that's part of the reason that the Israelis have not gotten involved. And if they were to get involved, this is a task that they've carried out in the past, communicating to Iranians, taking out the capabilities that it allows the regime to suppress as much as it can. So really, when the president says it's about time that the United States would send a very firm response, I'm looking at the nature of the targeting, if that's going to change. And of course, it's even more important than the nature of the targeting is the messaging behind it. So far, it seems like Washington still wants to make a deal as opposed to systemically remove the threat from Tehran.
Of course, we had 2 very important people in town yesterday, Zelensky and Netanyahu. Let's talk about Netanyahu first. No press inside those meetings. Could you draw anything from any of the communications you heard after that meeting yesterday in terms of the relationship between America and Israel and how closely they're still working together?
They're still working very closely, and I think the timing here is critical because this comes right after Israel demonstrated that it can harmonize its relations with the United States over southern Lebanon. They're gradually evacuating. They're working with the National Lebanese Army. So the precedent set by Jerusalem here is indicative of the fact that they're not trying to escalate tensions, and that was the main concern by Washington. The worry was that one way or another, if Israel were to get involved, the situation might spiral out of control. But guess what? Israel didn't get involved, but we see the Houthis closing the strait there. We still see Iraqi militias attacking. We see Iran escalate. So at this point, if Israel were to get involved, it would be more of a reactive than a proactive measure.
Okay. And as I say, Zelensky was here. President Trump looks like he might be becoming a little bit more refocused on Ukraine and trying to sort out that conflict. I asked him about that in the Oval Office today. He couldn't put a time frame on when it should end, but he said 25,000 people a week are dying in that war, and he said this is completely unacceptable. Do you think the Iranian people are concerned that with demands from Zelensky, America might start to prioritise Ukraine again at the expense of the Iranian people?
That continues to be the main concern, especially with the latest wave of crackdowns internally. The regime again held public execution of dissidents yesterday. That's something they do once in a while, but that really tells you about how fragile they've become. This is the measures they're resorting to. But again, time is of essence, because these individuals that are unfortunately being murdered by the regime are the ones that should really define the future of the country. These are the activists and dissidents, the brave young people we need to rely on. That's why time is of essence. But I think you can move two balls at once. You can deal with the situation in Ukraine parallel to the situation in Iran. As we've seen, they're interconnected. Ukraine struck Iranian assets in the Caspian Sea. The Islamic Republic refrained from responding, which tells you really it's also in Ukraine's favor for the situation inside Iran to resolve itself, because a lot of the cooperation between Moscow and Tehran is harming both Ukrainian and Iranians. So they're interconnected. You can address them simultaneously.
And what about the role of Russia in all of this? Because there were rumors that Moscow denied it, but that Russia is helping Iran. How might that change the dynamic, Jonathan?
It's not just Russia. It's more of a great power competition here. Who can help the Islamic Republic more? We see China stepping in even more than Russia, because of course Moscow has its own issues, as you noted, with Ukraine. If anything, to a great extent, they rely on Iranian technology. Well, that has been more or less resolved, but it really tells you about that relationship. They violate sanctions together, of course, great economic and military cooperation. But we see China now. Reuters reported that they're deliberately sending different launchers to the Islamic Republic, aiding that capability. Both China and Russia are enabling Iran's targeting by giving them intelligence on U.S. assets. But whether that's necessarily a game changer on the ground, not inherently, I would argue, because ultimately they can aid so much before they get directly involved. The real asset over there is just the regime using its military personnel to wage these attacks. They would do it without Russia and China.
Yeah, we know that this is proving a difficult sell for the president, that 1/3 of people in America are apparently on board at the moment with the action in Iran. How closely do you think he's going to be watching those numbers, and how might it affect his decision making?
It might affect it directly, but what are his options? Of course, the average voter or these people in the polls are not going to agree to a worse deal than the JCPOA. Even when Washington offered a great deal to Tehran, they still did not want it, they want more. So evidently we cannot go back, we cannot agree on even a worse deal, which means that there's no way out but through. So the status quo doesn't work, going back doesn't work, which means the only way you can really satisfy these voters is to escalate to the point of regime change. And I'm no longer afraid to publicly state that, because that's where we are, and we know the rationale behind these decision makers in Tehran, whether they're quote-unquote pragmatists or Islamists. So far we haven't seen a change in decision. There's no point in keeping them around or trying to get behavior change out of them.
Yeah, okay, Jonathan, thank you so much. Jonathan Sayed, brilliant as always, from the Foundation for the Defence of Democracies. Should we have a quick look at what you've been saying at home? A lot of you getting in touch this evening, particularly about that hearing. Burnham hasn't got a clue regards illegal migration, says Nick. Burnham would not address the Pakistani grooming gang debacle. Typical LIBOR, says Nick, through and through. Crossings are down, says Aaron. Oh, just jog on. They see a few hundred less as a result. Burnham ain't strong on migration, says out means outs. He just waffled. A lot of you coming back on that weren't entirely convinced by what Andy Burnham said on that topic. Right, still to come this evening on The Late Show Live.
I would love reconciliation with my family. There's no point in continuing to fight anymore.
King King Charles is reportedly prepared to offer Harry a room at Buckingham Palace. How generous. It's an empty house with about 100 rooms in it during his trip to the UK in September. Will that cause a rift, though, with William? I'm deeply entertained by that prospect. Right, we're going to be breaking it all down with the one and only Daphne Barak. This is Bev Turner on The Late Show Live, only on GB News. See you in a minute.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office. Here on GB News. A cooler feel for many today. Still pretty warm across the southeast in the sunny spells. Fresh breeze and a fair few showers coming in across Scotland. Some showers also for Northern Ireland, especially across the northern half, and the odd shower for Northern England too. Quite a bit more cloud compared to yesterday across the Midlands, southwest England, South Wales. One or two light showers just drifting through, but nothing really useful for gardeners. And a bit more of that cloud just spilling into the southeast through the day, so it won't be as sunny here, won't be as hot either, but say still quite warm at 28 Celsius. Cooler conditions further north, and certainly feeling pretty chilly with the rain across northern Scotland, which will actually be quite heavy at times here for Orkney, Caithness, Sutherland down into Aberdeenshire. Quite a wet afternoon. Elsewhere the showers will move through across central and southern Scotland with a fairly brisk breeze, and there'll be some bright spells, particularly across the borders. Some sunny spells too for Northern Ireland. Just a few showers mostly across the north, and some of those will feed into Cumbria as well, but much of England and Wales looking dry and sunny this afternoon, but a much cloudier afternoon, certainly compared to recent days across the southeast and East Anglia. Again, a little bit of light rain, but nothing for the gardeners that's of any use, and that'll tend to clear away slowly overnight. We'll keep some showers coming into the north and the west. A much fresher night, much cooler night, much more comfortable night. Temperatures across northern parts down into single figures, well down in some rural spots. So a much cooler, fresher start to Friday. Another fine and sunny day by and large. Could start quite cloudy across Kent in particular. The clouds should break up here. There'll be some showers coming in across northwest England, again the north of Northern Ireland and western Scotland. But elsewhere, most places dry, plenty of sunshine across the south. But instead of temperatures in the mid-30s, temperatures more likely to be back in the mid-20s. So it is turning cooler.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Here at GB News, we made a promise to tell your stories.
And on the 6th of August, we're marking 5 years of doing exactly that.
Celebrate with us by having your say. Join in the debates live on TV and radio.
And meeting your favourite presenters across the country, from Leeds to Aberdeen, from Belfast to Barry Island.
Plus, join me in Essex for our biggest live show of the year. Scan the QR code or visit gbnews.com/celebrate. Terms and conditions apply.
Only people that want to cheat. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, guys. Thank you. Thank you, Bev.
Thank you, Bev, and a little wink. Thank you, sir, from the Commander-in-Chief there. We'll hear what he had to say about Ukraine today later on in the show. You were driving along when you heard that, didn't you?
I was between meetings, yes, and I actually was just listening all about Dulles. By the way, everyone will be cheering that those revolting people movers are going to be eliminated. But he was talking about the renovation for Dulles Airport, and then Bev got the opportunity. He actually called out to Bev to ask a question, and Bev was able to pivot and ask President Trump what he thought about the UK, Andy Burnham, and about the migrants. So you got those subjects in there very well. And then at the end, after the whole press conference, he was basically wrapping up and then just said, and thank you, Bev.
It was very nice.
And I heard he winked at you too. That's what somebody told me.
I was one of the first ones out, and then I held the door for all the other journalists to come past after me going, hello, hello, hello.
Someone said to me, and he winked at her.
Yeah, he was very nice. He's always very nice. He likes the UK. Yeah, he has a soft spot for the UK.
He does, definitely.
I think it's more than just the UK, but that's another topic for another day.
Right, King Charles is reportedly prepared to offer Prince Harry a room at Buckingham Palace during his expected visit to the UK in September. Now, this move apparently comes despite claims that Prince William remains opposed to any reconciliation with his younger brother following years of public fallout. Royal commentators say that this highlights the different approaches that the father and son are taking to repair the family rift. With me now, I'm delighted to say, is journalist Daphne Barrack. Daphne, thank you so much for joining me. I have to say, I'm deeply tickled by this story. The idea that King Charles, as a show of generosity, has said to Harry, "You can have a room in Buckingham Palace." I don't know how many bedrooms there are, Daphne, in Buckingham Palace, but it's not really very generous, is it? There's nobody else lives there. It's a building site, isn't it? He's not exactly rolled out the red carpet, Daphne.
I think the big story, Bev, is between King Charles and William. By the way, I am a huge supporter of Ukraine. Good thing. Okay, I love what UK is doing for Ukraine. Thank you. But
thank you.
About Charles, we've known King Charles, and Camilla's family has been my friends forever. And I have to tell you, it's different two people, like Charles and William, right? So basically, Charles is a softie, and of course he's battling cancer that I just beat cancer, and I understand it. But I have to tell you a very exclusive exchange that nobody would know between me and Charles. In 2004, I was a big interview of Dateline NBC, and at that point, you remember there was a Diana audio tapes about, and it was very embarrassing for her sons. And I saw Charles at that point, Prince Charles, at a very small encounter, maybe 20 people. And he talked to me, and I said, what do we do about it? I did put the executive producer of Dateline on alert if you can help him, David Cobo. And he was so nice. He would just said, like, I love my boss more than anything, but he was also very practical. What can I do? It's her tapes out there, you know? So I think that's what you show what the King Charles is. Like, on the other hand, he would love to meet his grandchildren and everything, but he's also practical. On the other hand, about William, Fergie, the former Duchess of Franks, thanks to me, and she and her husband are not Duke and Duchess anymore because I exposed the lies. But anyway, Sarah's been confiding me for years, and she said 3 years ago that she's so upset because, like, well, Charles and Camilla are warm to her. William and Kate were living next door, and she said, Daphne, they never call back. I've been trying to call them. They've never called back. They're freezing us out. So Sarah also felt that William would, but I think we have to give William a credit because he's a future king. He's inherited all this horrible stuff from Harry and Andrew and everything, and he has to get the monarchy, work, and basically it's not fair to say that he's called because it's up to him to get it. And I totally agree. As I said, Camilla, Annabelle's sister has been a friend. The whole family has been a friend. They're a very warm family, but it's up to William to maintain the monarchy.
And what you mean by that anecdote, Daphne, correct me if I'm wrong, is that William has the ability to just shut down somebody that he doesn't want in their life, even when they are family, in a way that Prince Charles will be just that bit more pragmatic, maybe a bit more forgiving and a little bit more open-minded, maybe, to say, look, life is short, we need to control the controllables, and anything we can't control, we just have to let it go. When you think of those different personalities in the way that you know them both, Charles and William, who is going to win here? If Charles wants to bring Harry into the family more and he's more forgiving, and William is saying, no, Dad, Papa, no, he's not staying at Buckingham Palace, we're not accommodating him, we don't trust him, who will prevail, do you think, in the short term at least?
Good question, Bev. You're so smart. I would say, on one hand, of course, emotionally, I'm with King Charles because I'm a cancer survivor, like the Prince of Wales and himself, still battling cancer. Of course, I understand it. But I'm with William. William is the future, and William, don't forget, the Queen is the ones who said, you cannot be half-half. You want to get money, you want to get stuff, you got to be part of the royal family. She was the one who said that. And I think William and Kate are the one who have to say that, no, if it's you have hurt our family in a way we cannot undo it, and we want to take care of everything. But it doesn't say that I don't understand that King Charles wants to see his grandchildren. He's battling cancer, of course.
Yeah.
But it's too, like, it's apple and oranges.
Yeah. Just one last quick question, Daphne. Meghan Markle put this picture of them in the UK going to see Diana's resting place. That apparently was infuriating to Prince William. Just tell us a little bit about why that would have been so upsetting for him.
Because I think Diana's brother wanted to bury her in a very private place that wouldn't be like a touristic place. And I totally understand. You remember his very angry speech at a funeral, and it's also, I think, where her sons agree. So suddenly Meghan putting these pictures there, and it was a whole context, like, okay, you did not allow me UK to come, and you did not pay my security expenses. Suddenly I'm going there, and I'm suddenly putting everything, and I'm not actually sure why did she feel that the security big thing was better at the late Princess of Wales. But anyway, it was very weird, and it's not why Diana is buried there. Diana, I knew Diana, and it's not why Diana is buried there. But Diana is buried there because of the whole message is privacy, and the whole message is there were paparazzis chasing her, and she just missed this message.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Daphne. Great to see you. Daphne Barak, the journalist, friend of the royals, friend of the stars. Always a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much. Let me ask my panel about this. Hillary, I bet you're like a coiled spring to get in on this, aren't you?
Yes, absolutely. No,
right, just go. Tell me what you think.
So first of all, I do think that King Charles, he talks about Prince Harry. He refers to Prince Harry as my dear boy. So he really, obviously, he wants to go down as a very forgiving monarch, and he wants to open his heart, and he wants to open the door.
Charles is obviously not Harry's
I think this is
father.
actually delusional. I think it's a father's love getting in the way of what is sensible, what is right. He has to pay attention to public opinion. Of course, I know that Americans always think, oh yes, you know, the king rules. The royals are there basically at the behest of the public. The minute that all of public opinion is lost and is against them, we know that they're not really probably one day would survive. Prince William actually has his finger on the pulse of the public. The public and all the opinion polls have Prince Harry only just above his uncle that was former Prince Andrew. He's at the bottom now of opinion polls. He's not popular. He threw his family under the proverbial royal bus, and the only thing that's worse than hanging your dirty laundry out for everybody to read about it and throwing your family under the bus is to do it for money. He monetized the royal family. He did everything to thwart everything that his grandmother tried to do to appease him. And as she was just saying, the Queen did not agree to this. She did not agree to half in, half out. So the bottom line is, I think King Charles's heart is maybe in the right place, but he's delusional if he thinks he can trust Prince Harry, who at every single juncture has thwarted everything his grandmother stood for and wanted, and the preservation of the royal family.
Richard, the demise of Harry, of course, is all because of your American lady, according to some people. That bloomin' American going over there and stealing our Harry, it's all their fault, isn't it, all this?
Apparently, listen, I think a father, King Charles in this case, has a perspective that a sibling, a contemporary, doesn't have. I certainly understand where William's coming from, but I do think, as a father myself of boys roughly their age, I just think that there is a tendency to kind of see, certainly if you're ill, even if you weren't, to kind of patch things up. It's just kind of the parental urge, and whereas William kind of is just kind of has this grudge, which is not irrational hardly. So I think if you're asking me, I think at the end of the day it's going to be Charles' call, not William's, in terms of Harry's standing. Nothing that Hillary said do I disagree with, but I do think at the end of the day Charles will have his way.
Now, Stephen Pound, the idea that Charles has offered Harry a bedroom in Buckingham Palace when he comes over in September has really tickled me. So let me ask you a bit of trivia. How many bedrooms are there in Buckingham Palace?
Well, there's 312 rooms in Buckingham Palace, so there's about 80 bedrooms, I think. I don't know them all, but how many are there?
It's not the most generous gift, is it? It's not like he's giving
82.
Right.
Yeah.
So
what it reminds
my
me of
understanding is.
You know that film?
Hillary, I would prioritise Hillary's knowledge over this. However, I think I have found it online.
Okay.
52 royal and guest bedrooms and 188 staff bedrooms. So do the maths very quickly, Richard. I'm looking at you. 52 out of 188.
Yeah. 230.
You can tell we all work with words and not numbers, can't you?
Yeah. Well, what's the math you're asking for?
The point is,
there's plenty.
The point is, he's got, well over 200 bedrooms. And he's offering him a bedroom in a house that no one's living in, Stephen. It's not a generous gift from his father, is it?
Doesn't it remind you? Do you remember that marvellous film, The Shining, about this sort of great lonely hotel where there's nobody's in it except, you get Jack Nicholson comes through the door with a meat axe. Now, I'm not saying that anyone's going to be doing that in this particular case, but it just reminds me of The Shining, of that Outlook Hotel, which is nobody, corridor after corridor of empty. This poor, lonely, ginger-bearded figure walking around like Banquo's ghost. It's empty, echoing the great halls, looking at the marvellous. You've got the Rembrandts and the Van Goghs, but nobody else there. And it's got a week for it. But as for the anti-American thing, I am so old that I can remember when I was a lad, we still resented the fact that Wallace Simpson had married Edward VIII. And we used to sing, "Hark the herald angels sing, Mrs. Simpson's pinched our king." And so there was an element of that about the, well, wasn't the only thing we sang, but that's the different Ocho.
You're making me feel young now. Thank you.
So all I can say is that when I think it was Clement Attlee referred to in one particular case, and he said, "A period of silence on your part would be greatly appreciated." I think the nation feels that same way about. I mean, I don't know much about Meghan Markle, the Princess of Montecito's magnificent cranberry and raspberry and celeriac jam, but I'm prepared to cut her some slack if she wants to really go into the Southern California condiment trade. But please, can we just get on with our lives in this country? We're not obsessed with it. And I'm a monarchist.
I would like to say, I covered that royal wedding. I covered it for many US networks, and the people were 15 deep in Windsor. So one of the things that really has, I think, actually had the ire of the British public is that they paid for that wedding with their pounds being taxed. And yet she had all that support. She had the acknowledgement, and she had the support of the British public. She had the adoration of the public. I believe at every single juncture, she was the one that thwarted it. She took umbrage. She even took umbrage at the smell of the St. George's Chapel. So every single juncture, there was a problem from her part.
Well, it will be fascinating to see whether he takes up that offer of a room in Buckingham Palace. I don't think he will at all, to be completely honest. I think he'll find that quite offensive. Right, first of all, let's have a look at some of the... No, not first of all, now. Let's have a look at some of the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers. Today's for you there. Quite a few of them are dominated by the hot weather in Europe. The iPaper is reporting take a shorter shower to save water in drought. The public is urged. Oh, I can't wait to talk to Richard Goodstein about that, about how he feels about the fact the UK have to shower briefly because we're such a medieval country. The Daily Express dying tell PM we don't have dying tell the dying tell the Prime Minister we don't have time for these delays. Campaigners devastated after Burnham says the law on assisted deaths must wait. The Sun newspaper How is that plan going, Prime Minister? As the French admit waving through 1,000 migrants on one day, that's going to hold him to account. He is going to have to start leaning into this topic and be a little bit more muscular, I think, if the paper's going to start doing that to him. The Mirror, where are our babies? Inside a funeral horror home, grieving mum's plea as harrowing pictures released. I have not got my head around that story yet, I'm afraid. We will have a look at it perhaps. The Guardian. Cottrell transferred $2 million to mother days before her reform donations. Anybody know what that's about?
Cottrell transferred? No.
No, me neither. No, we don't know what that's about, but we can see the picture there of a very dry hour. It's George Cottrell. It's the guy that's known as Posh George, a supporter of Nigel Farage. The allegation, I guess, looking at that, is that he gave $2 million to his mother and then she perhaps made reform donations. This is The Guardian going after Nigel Farage in a very intense way now. The Daily Telegraph are saying calls grow for England to boycott the World Cup. What, the next one? Or the one we've just had? Can't be talking about 4 years' time, can they? Surely that can't be the front page of the Daily Telegraph.
We need all of Europe. We need every single European country. Without France and Spain, Germany, the Netherlands, Norway, without all the European countries, it won't work. So
calls grow from who? That's a bit of a silly front page Daily Telegraph. The Independent, scorched earth Britain. This is the picture of, we've just seen it there, of a church. Oh, it's in Surrey. Maybe it is, I don't know. But Wisley in Surrey has seen 43 days with no rain.
That's about 5 miles from where I grew up.
Yeah. And it's July, it's set to be the driest ever recorded. The Metro newspaper. Future looking droughtful for baking Britain. Another picture of a country that is so ill prepared for hot weather that we can't water our lawns. And so, Richard, let me ask you about this. Do we need to cancel our showers to save the planet?
Of course not.
We do. We have to. Our government is telling us we all have to be using wet wipes.
I mean,
we can't have a shower.
just like, look, I think when there are challenges to the energy system, the advice to kind of turn the heat up a little bit, or the AC so it's not quite as cool. I mean, all that makes sense on the margins, but it's not going to deal with kind of the fundamental problem. And I think, honestly, I don't know that shorter showers will make a dent in this drought. It's regrettable because I don't. If you say, okay, smart Alec, what is the way to deal with it? In the short run, the answer is there isn't one.
We haven't had any new reservoirs. This is the problem. We just haven't built reservoirs. I think it's something like about 25 years. I like a reservoir. I don't think you just have to have it for the water. I think they're very nice places to go and walk around, put a little cafe by a reservoir. Like in the UK, some of our prettiest sites are reservoirs. It's so negligent that subsequent governments have not invested in our water infrastructure. We look like mugs. No. It's a hot day and the government's saying don't have a shower.
No, absolutely ridiculous. And one of the things I always say about global warming is I'll believe it matters when the people that purport to care that it matters and fly on their private jets to Davos actually care about the environment, because then they do it via Zoom like a lot of us do our business. They would do it via Zoom, number one. Number two, there was a warming period during the Roman era. They had no SUVs, they didn't have any private jets.
But they did have grapes.
And by the way, there were grapes grown in northern England during that time because of the warming period. Then there was a cooling period during the medieval era, and that's when the medieval era there were floods all across England. Global warming, cooling. The last point of the last cooling period ended in 1873, which is when everybody talks about the beginning of when records were kept. That was 1873. So the temperature always goes back to that era. Yes, we're going through a natural warming period, but every single time there's a volcano erupts, like the one that was on Iceland, that one on Iceland caused the same as 673 years of any damage that any human's ever done to the environment. And last but not least, anybody who says they care about the environment, here's the following. Have the Chinese stopped building all of their coal mines? They build 84 every single year, number one. Number two, everybody that purports to care about the environment, all this IKEA furniture and all this manufactured furniture people buy, in the UK and the US, antique shops are closing across the nation because people don't just hand down their furniture. And last but not least, you can air condition an average size American house for 1 hour, it's the same amount of damage to the environment as driving a Hummer for 6 months. So if people really care about the environment, they'll stop using AC.
Well, quite.
And they won't do that.
No.
They don't really care.
Well, not in this country. I'm absolutely sick of being out on the road and it's about 1,000,000 degrees and I go into a building and it's like freezing. It's like minus.
Crazy.
What's wrong
It's
with you
colder
all?
in American buildings in the summer than it is in the winter.
Yes.
In the winter, don't try wearing a winter dress. Don't try wearing thick pantyhose because it's too warm.
Honestly, you Americans, you love your air conditioning, don't you? Right, let me ask my my British guests about this evening, Stephen and David. David, let me ask you about this. I just despair when I see a headline in a newspaper suggesting that British people in 2026 have to have a really quick shower because we're so rubbish at looking after our infrastructure that we just don't have enough water. What are we going to do when we start to have blooming data centres, David? They use more water than we can even imagine.
Absolutely, Bev. And we haven't built a reservoir or major water infrastructure storage unit in about 30 years. And this is testament to what we were saying earlier about we can't build strategic national infrastructure. Like I said, we haven't built a nuclear reactor in 30 years. Our planning system is so full of red tape that we can't deliver important infrastructure. And you mentioned data centres, Bev. Well, as a councillor in my ward in South Buckinghamshire, they're trying to push so many data centres out, but there isn't the infrastructure. They're digging up all the roads, but where's the water going to come from? I mean, we've got a huge reservoir near Heathrow Airport, but that's supplying London. We need to build more reservoirs. We need to relax the rules on air conditioning because Britain has the most ludicrous air conditioning policy where it's costly to set up, where the planning law says you can't fit air conditioning in most buildings because of net zero rules, which is just ridiculous. So we need to fix our national infrastructure. We need to build reservoirs and fit more air conditioning.
We've obviously improved slightly.
Stephen, you're getting a massive data centre in Ealing. Do you know this? I don't know whether you may know this, but you're getting a massive data centre in Ealing, in your neck of the woods. How are you going to keep that cool when you haven't even, people can't even have a shower? You are?
I don't know where it's going to go. We haven't got room for a phone box in Ealing. I mean, every piece of land's been built on. I don't know what they're talking about. But I have to say, we've obviously improved a bit since the last major drought, because I seem to remember that the instruction was save water and bath with a friend. So we've actually moved on a little bit from that. But what I can't, what I can't understand is that this country, 2/3 of this country, is permanently soaked in rainwater. And why can't we simply channel from Scotland and the north down into the south? We've got a canal system which could actually move the water around this country perfectly adequately, and we just don't seem to be doing it. How on earth can this island, which is sodden most of the time, actually have drought situations here? I actually agree very much with David on this, and I think this is as far as we'll go. But we have an appalling record on infrastructure. There was actually one reservoir being built at the moment.
Let me tell you, I found out where your major data centre is going to be, Stephen. I'm sorry to interrupt you. A major data centre will be built on the former Honey Monster factory site in Southall, after Ealing Council's planning committee approved the plans on the 15th of July. It's a 6.8 hectare Bridge Road site with a hyperscale data centre, a workplace building, a training centre, landscaping and new public spaces.
Well, can I say, I used to chair the planning committee in the Underborough of Ealing, and I would not have been quite so sympathetic when I was chair of the planning. But that's the old Quaker Oats factory. I know it quite well. But bizarrely, just next to that, on the old gasworks site in Southall, there's a development that's being held up because there is insufficient energy in the grid to actually power the new development. And they say we cannot actually have enough electricity. If we build these flats, there will be no power for them. So we've got a huge problem down there.
We've got to go, my friend. I'm so sorry to cut you off. We've got to go. Here's the weather. I hope it's sunny. It is sunny. Here you go. Here's Alex with your weather.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A cooler feel for many today. Still pretty warm across the southeast in the sunny spells. Fresh breeze and a fair few showers coming in across Scotland. Some showers also for Northern Ireland, especially across the northern half, and the odd shower for Northern England too. Quite a bit more cloud compared to yesterday across the Midlands. Southwest England, South Wales, 1 or 2 light showers just drifting through, but nothing really useful for gardeners. And a bit more of that cloud just spilling into the southeast through the day, so it won't be as sunny here. Won't be as hot either, but I say still quite warm at 28 Celsius. Cooler conditions further north and certainly feeling pretty chilly with the rain across northern Scotland, which will actually be quite heavy at times here for Orkney, Caithness, Sutherland down into Aberdeenshire. Quite a wet afternoon. Elsewhere, the showers will move through across central and southern Scotland with a fairly brisk breeze, and there'll be some bright spells, particularly across the borders. Some sunny spells too for Northern Ireland. Just a few showers, mostly across the north, and some of those will feed into Cumbria as well, but much of England and Wales looking dry and sunny this afternoon, but a much cloudier afternoon, certainly compared to recent days across the southeast and East Anglia. Again, a little bit of light rain, but nothing for the gardeners that's of any use, and that'll tend to clear away slowly overnight. We'll keep some showers coming into the north and the west. A much fresher night, much cooler night, much more comfortable night. Temperatures across northern parts down into single figures, well down in some rural spots. So a much cooler, fresher start to Friday. Another fine and sunny day by and large. Could start quite cloudy across Kent in particular. The clouds should break up here. There'll be some showers coming in across northwest England, again the north of Northern Ireland and western Scotland. But elsewhere, most places dry, plenty of sunshine across the south. But instead of temperatures in the mid-30s, temperatures more likely to be back in the mid-20s. So it is turning cooler.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Bo, they are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline.
Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Here at GB News, we made a promise to tell your stories.
And on the 6th of August, we're marking 5 years of doing exactly that.
Celebrate with us by having your say. Join in the debates live on TV and radio.
And meeting your favourite presenters across the country, from Leeds to Aberdeen, from Belfast to Barry Island.
Plus, join me in Essex for our biggest live show of the year. Scan the QR code or visit gbnews.com/celebrate. Terms and conditions apply.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there. With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again.
To start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter? So that's a very live question. Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way.
You will not want to miss it, trust me. The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live with me, Bev Turner. Now then.
Any reasonable person who has followed his unhinged
obsession with me would readily come to the same conclusion.
Former White House advisor, of course, made himself the doctor of the pandemic. Anthony Fauci was put under the spotlight today by Senate Republicans in a blockbuster showdown on Capitol Hill. You will not believe what happened. Also tonight.
Well, he did say one very good thing. He said he's going to open up North Sea oil.
President Trump opens up on his relationship with Andy Burnham, praising the reopening of the North Sea. Plus,
they're coming from all over the world. They're coming from Africa. They're coming from South America. They're coming from different parts of Asia. And they're invading Europe. I mean, they're invading Europe. It's an invasion. And the UK is a prime suspect.
700 illegal migrants arrived just today. President Trump sounds the alarm over the impact of mass migration, uncontrolled migration on Europe. Also tonight.
I have said that what is happening to British Jews is a national emergency.
A new report has found that Britain recorded the biggest rise in anti-Semitic incidents last year of any country with a major Jewish population outside of Israel. Why might that be? Also, the conflict between the US and Iran continues to escalate after Tehran launched fresh missile attacks on US military bases in Jordan and 3 tankers in the Strait of Hormuz. I'm Bev Turner. This is The Late Show Live. Washington with me this evening, Hilary Fordwich and Democrat strategist Richard Goodstein. In London, we've got former Labour MP Stephen Pound and Conservative councillor David Moore. Thank you all for joining us. I made the director hit your names very quickly then on the button. Did you see that? Quick shot of all of them. But if you're just joining us, where have you been? We've had a great show for the first 2 hours, last hour of the night now, because our main news, he was hailed by supporters as the face of, well, and by himself, as the face of the science during the COVID pandemic. But today, Anthony Fauci was dragged back to Capitol Hill, somewhat unwillingly, where Republican senators demanded answers over decisions that were made during the pandemic, particularly about the origin of the virus and whether it had come out of a lab in Wuhan that Anthony Fauci knew about and knew about the funding of the lab. Of course, the decisions changed millions of lives across the world.
Known as America's doctor.
Seen to many as a superhero.
Better to give us answers that we can trust than Dr. Anthony Fauci.
But they're really criticizing science because I represent science.
Dr. Fauci, give us vaccines.
Anthony Fauci very quickly became the world's doctor in the spring of 2020. He was everywhere, advising presidents, appearing on television and becoming one of the most influential public health voices of the pandemic. So today's Senate hearing set out to examine whether previous testimony he'd given to Congress was accurate, along with lingering questions surrounding COVID's origins and US-funded research linked to Wuhan.
Fast forward 6 years, and although much of the establishment media has moved on, some key Republican figures here in America still want answers.
In an effort to get them, they subpoenaed Fauci to give evidence today, focusing in particular on any involvement he may have had with research connected to the Wuhan Institute of Virology. In a highly unusual move, Fauci had already been granted a preemptive pardon by President Biden. There was huge anticipation in Washington today as he faced questions from senators, including Rand Paul and Ron Johnson. But there were audible gasps in the room when Fauci declined to answer a single question, instead repeatedly invoking his Fifth Amendment right.
Under the advice of my attorneys, I will invoke my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution to refrain from answering your questions. Thank you.
Democrat senators described the hearing as a political witch hunt against a man who had devoted his life to public health. Republicans argued that the American people deserved answers and pointed to Fauci's estimated personal wealth.
Well, nothing says honesty like taking the Fifth, huh, Doc? And you've disgraced your profession by doing it. You called yourself the most famous scientist in the world. You've done more to harm science than anybody in my lifetime. And I hope you'll go home and write that in your diary. But I think I know why you're doing it. It's because you don't want to answer questions. It's because you did all kinds of terrible things. It's because during the pandemic, you got rich.
It is a total disgrace what you did to this country.
The speakers argued that if individuals have that much influence over our lives, asking them to explain their decisions isn't about political point scoring, it's about accountability. Of course, this isn't just an American story.
From lockdowns to school closures and PPE procurement, the decisions taken at the very highest levels of government continue to cast a long political shadow. Matt Hancock's own released WhatsApp messages included one in which the then Health Secretary was told that he could use a crisis of this scale to propel yourself into the next league.
For many people, frustration remains. They believe that those who exercised extraordinary influence over our lives should face greater accountability for the decisions that they made. Fauci may have avoided answering senators' questions today, but Senator Bernie Moreno perhaps captured the mood in the room with one memorable question.
6 years later, saying, who the do you think you were for doing that?
I can tell you in the spill out room that got a round of applause because that summed up how so many people felt in that room today. Hillary. We discussed it at the top of the show. We didn't bring in our London panel with this, so let me do that now as well. Stephen Pound and Councillor David Moore in London this evening. Let's have a look at what we saw today and just kind of discuss what we take from this, because our own COVID inquiry, David, is deeply dissatisfactory to so many people. The premises are completely wrong. Other countries have got it done. They've made decisions. It's not costing the hundreds of millions that ours is proving to cost the British taxpayer outrageously. Why aren't we being able to get answers for that period of time? They can't get them here either because they're getting blocked. And why does it matter, David?
It matters hugely when you have essentially a public health dictatorship where you have a member of the Communist Party on the SAGE committee, an incredibly influential scientific committee that essentially ran Britain during COVID. Democratic representatives were overruled, and I remember our MP Joy Morrissey called this out years ago during the lockdown, and of course the public health dictatorship and the mainstream media said, oh, how dare she call out the fact people's rights are being dissipated before their eyes. And now Joy and so many others are on the right side of history. And in the case of America, why on earth is Fauci, despite the fact he's being subpoenaed before senators to give the truth, is evading the truth? And a lot of people must answer for why this country was sent into a dictatorship without checks and balances.
Hillary?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, go on, Stephen. I didn't ask you about this last time. Stephen, you can come in on this. I haven't heard from you on this.
I'm profoundly reluctant to use words like dictatorship. I think it was certainly an unprecedented period, which is something I hope to God we never have to repeat again. But here's the thing. Dr. Fauci, Anthony Fauci, had a lot of global sympathy at a particular time. He was seen to be a voice of reason and expertise. He has actually forfeited all that public and international respect he had by his actions today. I don't know why he did it, because it begs the immediate question, what on earth is he frightened of? How on earth has he actually made himself look risible in this particular case? I mean, the aspects of his diary, I have to say, are self-seeking and egotistical and embarrassing, to be quite honest. An aspect of the money he made during that period, actually does ask a few questions. I don't entirely go along with the idea that it's being a witch hunt against him. I think if anybody, I don't know if it's possible to witch hunt yourself, but I think he's pretty much managed to do that. And there is no sympathy left for him. And I'm pretty sorry to have to say that.
No. Well, the figure that was mentioned in there today was that his value now is about $12 million. I thought it might actually be more than that. I thought that sounded a little conservative given how much money some politicians in this town managed to make. And Richard, the frustration came because it looked like, and it clearly demonstrated a complete lack of respect for the American people, for truth, for logic, for rationality. If he had nothing to hide, he had nothing to fear by answering those questions. Isn't the point that they could have proven today by his answers that he previously lied under oath, and that was what would have been problematic for him?
So I'll accept your premise if you accept the premise that when Donald Trump invoked the Fifth Amendment over 400 times, in a deposition about fraud that he had engaged in, that he would have been better off kind of coming clean about his conduct. And I don't think anybody kind of resented Trump invoking the privilege. That was his right. And I think in Fauci's case, this was a setup. There are loads of documents out there that Fauci doesn't control. There are loads of scientists out there who Fauci doesn't control, who know pretty much everything he knew. They knew what information was getting to him. They're not dead. They're reachable. Incidentally, the Senate has been, the Republicans have controlled the Senate since January of 2025. You know, why has it taken this long to put him under oath like this?
Because he had to be subpoenaed to be there. He wasn't going to go willingly.
January or February of 2025.
But he has been subpoenaed previously, and now he's back again today because the answers weren't found. When you talk about the scientists who could have spoken out against him or contradicted him, these people, this was discussed today there in the Senate. He was handing out grants of millions of dollars, and it is all there in the emails to silence any dissenting scientific voice. And if you're running a scientific department and the head honcho scientist in the country comes to you and says, I'd quite like you to conclude something a little differently on this, would you mind if you can do that? You know what, you're going to get a $5 million grant for that. Now, you know, it's surprising how many scientists would accept changing the conclusions of their papers under that sort of pressure.
When you said he's handing out grants, let's not kid ourselves. We got that vaccine way faster than anybody had forecast as of March, April, May of that year. One of the companies, Pfizer, actually got help, and one, Moderna, didn't, or vice versa. So this was not just grants from the federal government, but they helped. And then what happened? Trump basically didn't say to people, get vaccinated, like I did. He went to, before a public audience, he was at a rally, and he got booed when he talked about the vaccination. And guess what? I think hundreds of thousands of people, more Republican than Democrat, because they worshipped him and Democrats didn't, died because
that's just not true.
No, it's indisputably true.
It's just not true.
It is indisputably true.
The vaccine, there is no evidence it saved a single person. Right. And I know that will make your blood run cold. But believe me, I know this topic inside and out, and there is no empirical evidence that it saved a single human being. Obviously, Pfizer and Moderna and AstraZeneca were here. They would tell you they would see that differently. But AstraZeneca very quickly pulled the vaccine.
We saw death rates that distinguish, frankly, between people who lived in red areas versus blue areas in the United States. This is again not debatable, and because we knew there was no uptake of the vaccine in the red areas, and there was plenty of people who got the vaccine in the blue. You can say, well, it was a fluke.
It's not a fluke. It's not a fluke. Look at Florida. The states that didn't lock down in the same way had lower death rates,
and they countries like Sweden
and Sweden.
Yeah, all they did was they had those with weak immune systems stay home, and retirees stay home, and they left the rest of the economy open.
Look, I will stipulate that people made mistakes from Anthony Fauci on down. The distancing, whatnot, that was imperfect. But think about everything we were living with in real time and all the uncertainty, and people looking back to the Spanish flu and the toll that took 100 years before. That's what we kind of had as a touchstone, and against that backdrop, we frankly did pretty well.
All the BLM rioters and Antifa rioters and arsonists, they weren't wearing masks. They didn't all die.
Of course, nobody all died. Incidentally, the Antifa firebombed Biden headquarters in 2020. These were not Democratic plants. Of course, people who didn't wear a mask didn't die. I mean, no one was suggesting there was a one-to-one correlation. All I'm saying is people who got vaccines in bluer areas, the Democratic areas of the country, had lower death rates from COVID than people in red areas.
There are four pillars to a strong immune system, and if the government had really cared, they would have eliminated junk food, eliminated refined sugar, eliminated
Then that's your beef with Donald Trump, because he was president when he could have done that.
They would have made sure that everybody was exercising, let alone they were closing golf courses in.
But he was taking the advice of Fauci.
Correct.
Not about.
Remember that.
Not about unhealthy eating.
Of course he was.
No,
of course
Fauci,
he was.
Fauci was an
But the point is, if Fauci had come in and said, listen, Mr. President, you need to advise people, go to the gym, gym, get some fresh air, because obesity is your biggest contributory factor next to age, as if you're going to fare badly with COVID-19. If he'd said that, then Trump would have listened to him, because he listened to him on the whole warp speed rollout nonsense. He would have listened to him. That's not what Fauci did, because for the conclusion you could only draw today that it wasn't in his interest for people to get well. It was in his interest for people to take an untried drug, and they were mandated to do so.
And the pressure of the lobbying of the FANG stocks, Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google and Microsoft, they all wanted people at home using all of their products because they profited tremendously. Whereas little local, tiny little restaurants, you had to go in there with your mask. You had to have your mask, but then you sat at your table, you were able to take your mask off. You could go shopping in major big stores.
Of course.
You could do so many things, but it was a little.
What I find really interesting, and I've been having this argument for 6 years, and as you know, it's been politically changing for me. I've been on a real political journey of it, and the people on the left that I argue with, and it's bizarre that it shouldn't be a left-right issue. It's just weird what it's tapped into, that particular schism. But the people on the left, hang on, Richard, you have watched as a lefty the biggest transfer of wealth in history since spring 2020 to today. And you're okay about that. You've also watched the biggest money-grabbing exercise from big pharmaceutical companies that squashed the working business. The solution to this problem was big pharma, big business, to Hillary's point, your Amazons, your Deliveroos, your Uber Eats. You watch this money get pushed uphill whilst your local garage mechanic went bankrupt. And it's been the left. It's been the left cheering that on. Make that make some sort of sense to me.
Again, I think the dividing line where there were people, I think they tend to correlate with Republicans, who just didn't believe science. They didn't believe climate change was real. They didn't believe that dealing with COVID was real. No, I don't think there's actually...
That's happened since. The lack of trust has happened since.
That's not debatable. Again, that correlation exists.
I wasn't a climate skeptic before this, and I don't trust the authorities.
Okay, right. So I'm saying there are people who don't believe in science, and some people that do. It tends to kind of actually differentiate Democrats from Republicans. It shouldn't.
You can and can't believe in science. You can and can't believe in those in positions of power making decisions on your behalf. And what has happened is that those in positions of power, Exhibit A in the stand today, Anthony Fauci, has ruined public trust in the health authorities, in anything. And as you say, it has spread. That skepticism has become contagious. Why? Because in the absence of any rational answers, we have been forced to become much more skeptical, and that is on Fauci.
Yeah, I don't think
it's irrefutable. It's factual that 21% of our health is genetics. Like, I have terrible bunions, that's genetics. There's nothing you can do about that. So the remaining 79%, that is 100% in our control. And the government didn't say your immune system is within your control. So it's about what you eat, it's about how you exercise, it's all about lifestyle. 79% of your health. Right, American public, right, British public, we're going to do everything to strengthen your immune system. Anybody who's ever sick, it's one thing, they got a weak immune system. That's all you've got to do, and they didn't focus on that.
I don't think people's immune systems could have changed. Obesity couldn't have been addressed quickly enough to basically tackle what needed to be tackled regarding COVID. That's all.
All right, thank you so much. I wasn't expecting a little insight into your bunions at the end of that conversation, Hillary, but I do like a little bit of medical know-how from you all. Right. Let me know what you think at home. GBNews.com. That's your say. Still to come this evening on The Late Show Live.
There has been an extreme indulgence of anti-Semitism and extremism on our streets. It has to end.
Anti-Semitism is now a record high in the UK. We'll be discussing all with Bethany Mandel in just a moment. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News. No advert. I keep expecting an advert and there isn't one. Right, a new report has found the UK recorded the biggest rise in anti-Semitic incidents last year of any country with a major Jewish population outside of Israel. The study also says that 2025 was the deadliest year for Jewish people living outside of Israel in more than 3 decades, with governments urged to do more to tackle online hate and improve community security. With me now is columnist and political commentator Bethany Mandel. Bethany, very good evening, good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining me. So, damning statistics. I guess just the simple question is, why is it now the deadliest year for Jewish people living outside of Israel in the UK?
There's been incident after incident that's happened in the UK that wasn't really addressed. There were ambulances that were set on fire in Golders Green. There was a stabbing. And the troubling thing is, it seems as though my friend Dove Foreman wrote a wonderful piece in the JC this past week. We basically said it feels as though the very small Jewish community in England has been deprioritized because there is a much larger population that Labour has decided is more worthy of their attention because they're a much larger voting bloc. And so he chronicles in the Jewish Chronicle a great deal of events that have happened that basically elicited crickets from those in power. And so, you know, while I think that social media is a problem, it's a problem everywhere. To me, I'm looking at the leadership of people in power who don't seem to be that concerned with violence against Jews in the country.
And so when you say a greater number of certain other people, who do you mean?
There's a lot of immigration from Arab countries, and that is a massive voting bloc. The immigration question can't be sort of set aside and everyone is neutral. There is a very significant bloc of people who have been imported into the country who wish to see more Jewish deaths, whether they be in Israel or in Golders Green. And there is a lot of apathy as a result because there's people in power who don't want to anger that incredibly large voting bloc. And so they continue to look the other way until it gets to the point where, you know, there's a stabbing on Yom Kippur, and then they come out and they give a press conference and they say, oh, this is terrible. This is not the England I know, but this is the England that it has become because of the apathy of, you know, watching the ambulances set on fire, and no one cared.
Looking at the numbers here, Bethany, just to put a little bit of meat on the bones of this, my understanding is that from the UK, from the Office of National Statistics, there are roughly 13 to 14 Muslims for every Jewish person in the UK now. So about just over 4 million Muslims and 300,000 Jewish people. So you're saying that the pressure which has built between two communities which have traditionally had very long-standing animosity in another part of the world, over in the Middle East, has now spread to the UK, and we have been caught napping, not been sufficiently proactive to encourage amalgamating people together with different religious beliefs and ideologies. And if so, what can we do about it now if we have just left this to fester?
Yeah, I mean, this is a question that I think a lot of European countries have to face because they've imported a massive population of people who are hostile to their entire way of life. It's not just anti-Semitism. The Jews are the canary in the coal mine. There are anti-Western values that go throughout these communities. There are anti-woman values that go rampant through these communities. And so, I mean, I think the first step is to stop the rampant immigration. And the second step is to try to integrate the people that are there and see if you can remove the people who you can remove, because it can't go on this way. And I think that, you know, Marco Rubio gave a fantastic speech to European leaders in the last probably 4 months about that. And there was a lot of sort of silent nodding because people understood that they were signing their own death warrant of the West and in Europe by importing this massive population of people who want to destroy the West. And they're not hiding it.
Yeah, and it's a conversation which is being had here in America, actually, interestingly, and it's just not particularly being had in the UK. Really appreciate your time, Bethany. Bethany Mandel, columnist and political commentator. Let me bring my panel in on this. Richard Goldstein, it feels like you are the appropriate person to start this conversation with. Damning statistics about the UK and how much anti-Semitism is on the rise there. I remember having a guest before October the 7th. I had a guest on the show that I used to host on GBNews from the Jewish community, and he was talking about the rise in anti-Semitism. And when the break came on and we had a little chat, whatever, and I said to him, can I ask you a difficult question? I said, is this because there are more Muslims in the UK who are directing hate at Jewish people? That was my very naive perspective. And he sort of looked at me a little shocked and he said, well, it is that, but I can't say that. Now, October the 7th happened, and of course the conflict has subsequently been raging in the Middle East, and hopefully it's calmed down a little between Israel and Palestine at the moment. But now it's become okay to have this conversation. Is that the problem? We weren't discussing what were already tensions that were building.
I can't speak to the politics in the UK as to whether this is a political judgment because the numbers of Muslims so outnumber Muslims, the number of Jews. But I do think the politician who makes it a priority to stand up and call right from wrong and put their foot down will reap very big dividends. We haven't really seen it, frankly, as much in the U.S. I mean, when you have, Donald Trump having dinner with Nick Fuentes, one of the leading Holocaust deniers and anti-Semites, that doesn't exactly send the right signal. And we have Mamdani, the Democratic mayor of New York City, who really seems like every day is sending a signal that, as far as he's concerned, Jews just don't matter to him, in the city outside of Israel that has the single biggest, largest number of Jews. And I just think that, and we'll see that in the presidential campaign, I think it's going to be fascinating, whether it's Jewish candidates or otherwise, who say, because there will be bedeviled by Palestinian protesters. I am quite sure that somebody's going to figure out a way to say, listen, I'm happy to talk with you, not here. This is not good for the body politic. It's not good for your cause. And let's talk in the back room once I'm done. But if you can't let me speak, you don't deserve to have your point of view honored or heard. And I just think until that happens and anti-Semitic incidents are called out, and again, there was a stabbing, and they basically, everybody but Mamdani in New York City kind of rallied, and he was kind of nowhere to be seen, as opposed to saying, I'm going to deploy police out the wazoo to get this guy and throw the book at him. And that didn't happen, and I think he would have benefited.
Well, Mamdani said that if Netanyahu arrives in New York, he's going to have him arrested for war crimes.
Which is shameful. I mean, again, you can't be the mayor of New York City with the UN there and basically say, I'm going to pick and choose which foreign leaders I'm going to go after. I'm sorry. That, again, was, I think he's backed off that.
And don't forget, now there's these massive petitions and protests with New Yorkers not even wanting Mamdani to be there at the 9/11 anniversary, which is coming up, which is obviously not surprising after both, not just him, but his wife, what they've said, the anti-Semitic remarks they've made. So that's the New York sentiment. He hasn't been there. With regard to the UK and with the Jewish community, Winston Churchill said democracy is not a good form of government. It's just better than all the other ones tried. It is a numbers game. When you see the number, and it's the numbers, it's the voting public, you see the number of Muslims there are in the UK, it is just, and globally it's the same thing. You do know that by 2050, the Muslim religion will be the dominant religion in the world.
Can I just say one quick thing, Patty?
And that's partly to do with birth rates.
8-1.
So what you hear from Muslims, I was on a TV show today right after Abdul El Sayed, who's running for the Senate nomination, Democratic nomination in Michigan, very much a socialist, Muslim, and he talks about genocide and apartheid. And that whole notion, those two terms, of genocide and apartheid, are something that are like freely used. That's now become like a standard. Either you accept those terms or we don't want you, say the Democratic Socialists. And the answer to that is talk to Adolf Hitler about that. Because there were Zionists long before there were people who were now talking as they do, and they were Zionists to set up a Jewish state because the Jews needed a refuge, and Hitler demonstrated why that was. And now when they say, no, that's apartheid, that it should be like one man, one vote, and there shouldn't be Jews in control, well, that's because they just don't really respect the fact that Hitler tried to wipe out the Jewish religion. And if they don't accept that as kind of a premise, and I think that's, again, some politician, it could be Josh Shapiro, it could be Gavin Newsom, it could be Kamala Harris. I mean, I have different questions about which ones might, but somebody's got to stand up and say, here's why this apartheid business is nonsense. Here's why, incidentally, genocide, if Israel wanted to wipe out the Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza, they could. We've seen they have the wherewithal. That's what genocide would be, but they haven't. Sorry.
By the way, a lot of people in the inbox are saying, when did President Trump have dinner with Nick Fuentes?
I think it was 2021 or 2 at Mar-a-Lago.
Okay, before Nick Fuentes became
No, he was notable.
Yeah, but
and
come on. Before Nick Fuentes became Nick Fuentes, which has been a very recent evolution into a pretty rabid anti-Semite.
No, I think
he's not here to defend himself. He would dispute that category, that categorisation. But yeah, not in recent times. I was going to say, I really don't think President Trump would have dinner with Nick Fuentes now. No. Let me go to Stephen and David Moore on this. Stephen Pound, David Moore, those figures about anti-Semitism, not entirely shocking, David, and clearly an issue that wasn't in existence in the UK in the same way that it is now that we have 4 million Muslims who are bringing conflict and historical grievance to the streets of the UK. I hate it.
Absolutely, Bev. This is quite personal to me because near where I live, in Maidenhead, Sir Nicholas Winton, who saved thousands of Jewish lives with the Kindertransport. This is an example of this country has been welcoming to Jews for hundreds of years, being a safe haven to Jews for hundreds of years. Near where I lived, we had Benjamin Disraeli, the first Jewish Prime Minister of Britain, a Conservative Prime Minister. We were ahead of our game when Europe was threatening Jews with genocide, pogroms. We were the country that was standing for the Jewish people. And now it saddens me so much to see, like you've just mentioned, this rise of Islamism, sectarianism. We have the Al-Quds March, where people march through London shouting genocidal awful chants about the Jewish people. This is yet another example of Britain really sinking, and it's so sad to see the rise in anti-Semitism. And Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the Conservative Party, has been one of the only party leaders who's had the guts to stand up for the Jewish people, British Jews, who are fearing for their lives right now. And we need to crack down on Islamism, crack down on sectarianism, because this is not the Britain that saved so many Jewish lives and stood up for the Jewish people.
Yeah, Stephen Pound. I grew up in Prestwich in North Manchester, one of the most Jewish areas of the country. Anti-Semitism just wasn't a concept that I was aware of until, I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but genuinely until relatively recently, since October the 7th, really, since the attacks on Israel. Then it just wasn't something we experienced at school or in the community. Jewish people just rubbed along perfectly happily with people that weren't Jewish. We went down there for the best bagel shops. You know, it just wasn't an issue. So where has this come from, Stephen? And is anyone to blame? Which government is to blame? Tony Blair, I think.
Well, I don't think we should talk about blame. Incidentally, Benjamin Disraeli was not Jewish. He was baptised as an Anglican, and he lived his life as a member of the Church of England. His father, Isaac Disraeli, had actually converted long before he was actually born. However, look, oddly enough, one of the greatest benefits this country has ever known has been the influx of people who fled Nazism in the 30s and the 40s. The number of scientists, doctors, people in particularly in law, incredible levels. We're amazingly fortunate. However, we've got a situation now, and again, I've mentioned how extremely old I am. I mean, when I was a young man, anti-Israeli feeling was incredibly strong, because don't forget the Stern Gang, Menachem Begin, the hanging of the British sergeants, the bombing of the King David Hotel. These were actually acts of terrorism connected by Jewish groups like Irgun against that. But then it changed. We had the kibbutz, which is that we had the deserts blooming, and suddenly Israel and Judaism became indivisible, so inseparable. It was the one thing. But what we've now got is a situation where, in May of this year, in my ward in West London, you know the area well, the Green candidates didn't talk about cleaning the streets and emptying the bins and actually, looking after the area. They talked about Gaza. Now, this is something visceral, and I don't think that we can actually get away with this by saying we should crack down on it. Because what does that actually mean? I think, on the one hand, yes, we have to increase the security, and they have this security system already around the synagogues and the shuls at the present time. But we have to actually confront it, and I think at the moment there's so much ignorance about that. It's not just the ridiculous, the protocols of the elders of Zion, those awful tropes that came out about awful things that the Jews did. But here's the thing that seems to me absolutely fundamental to this. People cannot separate Israel from Judaism. Now, there are legitimate criticisms of Israel, You cannot criticise somebody for being Jewish. You cannot criticise that great Abrahamic faith. And I think that is what we have to separate. And, you know, as a grandfather, I will make damn sure that my kids realise how absolutely amazing some of the Jewish people in this country are, and also some of the non-Jewish people are. But you cannot identify an entire race, and you cannot damn and condemn a whole race by the actions of one country. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Do you accept that, Richard, the idea that people conflate frequently? They even would go so far as to conflate the decisions of Benjamin Netanyahu himself with all Jewish people.
1,000%. I mean, and that's what's happening with these attacks on Jews. People, because they're wearing skull caps or for whatever reason they're demonstrably Jewish, and people are going after them and saying, how dare you, from the river to the sea, as if somehow they're responsible. I will say this, I distinguish between, we've seen public support in the United States for Israel drop, not just among Democrats, but across the board. But I would say that once Netanyahu's gone from the scene, once Trump's gone with the scene, if we had a Shimon Peres or a Rabin, again, as a prime minister, somebody's wise, and we had a wise U.S. president, I actually think opinion changes because Israel, you know, respects freedoms of speech, of religion, of there are Arabs in the Knesset, okay, of Israel. I don't think there are Jews in in the parliaments of Islamic states.
But you must surely accept that the one thing you may not be able to blame Donald Trump for is being anti-Semitic. He has such a good relationship with Benjamin Netanyahu. The criticism of President Trump is that he's too close to Netanyahu.
And that's it. And so again, I think, you know, Biden saw what happened with the U.S. in the Iraq War. We kind of overreacted to 9/11, and we got kind of stuck. And I think what he was trying to do after October 7th was say, don't make the same mistake we did. But I think Trump came in and was like, Bibi, what do you need? And I think Israel should have capitalized on October 8th on for the sympathy in the world, and it's now reviled. And I don't think Trump's been a big help when it came to that. I
feel like Trump couldn't win with you. If he hadn't supported Israel in that, you'd have been criticising him. And are you saying he supported you too much?
Again, I think that he should have said to Bibi, look, those settlers, and we now see them almost daily on videotape attacking Palestinians for no good reason in the West Bank. You got to do something about that. Indeed, there will be penalties unless you do. And do you think Netanyahu would have listened? He damn well would have. As much as his coalition was dependent on the support from settlers, I do think if Trump had kind of put the arm on him, he would have. But he didn't. And he let those settlements expand. I think, again, he was overly generous. Do I think I would have criticized him if he had come down on him? I wouldn't have.
Right, we're very late for the weather, but after the weather we're going to talk about this because I asked President Trump about his meeting with Vladimir Zelensky today. Obviously the meeting was yesterday. It was all behind closed doors. I'll tell you what he said and we'll have a chat about that in just a minute. This is The Late Show Live. Here's your weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A cooler feel for many today. Still pretty warm across the southeast in the sunny spells. Fresh breeze and a fair few showers coming in across Scotland. Some showers also for Northern Ireland, especially across the northern half, and the odd shower for Northern England too. Quite a bit more cloud compared to yesterday across the Midlands, southwest England, South Wales. One or two light showers just drifting through, but nothing really useful for gardeners. And a bit more of that cloud just spilling into the southeast through the day, so it won't be as sunny here, won't be as hot either, but say still quite warm at 28 Celsius. Cooler conditions further north and certainly feeling pretty chilly with the rain across northern Scotland, which will actually be quite heavy at times here for Orkney, Caithness, Sutherland down into Aberdeenshire. Quite a wet afternoon. Elsewhere the showers will move through across central and southern Scotland with a fairly brisk breeze, and there'll be some bright spells particularly across the borders. Some sunny spells too for Northern Ireland. Just a few showers mostly across the north, and some of those will feed into Cumbria as well, but much of of England and Wales looking dry and sunny this afternoon, but a much cloudier afternoon, certainly compared to recent days across the southeast and East Anglia. Again, a little bit of light rain, but nothing for the gardeners that's of any use. And that'll tend to clear away slowly overnight. We'll keep some showers coming into the north and the west. A much, much fresher night, much cooler night, much more comfortable night. Temperatures across northern parts down into single figures, well down in some rural spots. So a much cooler, fresher start to Friday. Another fine and sunny day by and large. Could start quite cloudy across Kent in particular. The clouds should break up here. There'll be some showers coming in across northwest England, again the north of Northern Ireland and western Scotland. But elsewhere, most places dry, plenty of sunshine across the south. But instead of temperatures in the mid-30s, temperatures more likely to be back in the mid-20s. So it is turning cooler.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Here at GB News, we made a promise to tell your stories. And on the 6th of August, we're marking 5 years of doing exactly that.
Celebrate with us by having your say. Join in the debates live on TV and radio.
And meeting your favourite presenters across the country, from Leeds to Aberdeen, from Belfast to Barry Island.
Plus, join me in Essex for our biggest live show of the year. Scan the QR code or visit gbnews.com/celebrate. Terms and conditions apply.
Michelle Dewberry, this is Jubes & Co with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christys here.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Earlier today at the White House, I asked President Donald Trump about his latest meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky that was yesterday. Here's what he told me.
How was your meeting with President Volodymyr Zelensky yesterday?
It was good.
Did you see a timescale?
No, it was good. Look, you know, he's out doing his thing. I'd like him to end the war. So it's very simple. I get along with both. I get along with President Putin. I get along with President Zelensky. Like I told him, I wanted to end the war, get the war ended. Thousands of people, 25,000 people died last month. That's standard. And it's not acceptable. So I said...
So we couldn't put a time scale on it, folks, which is not really a surprise, is it? But I think the suspicion was here in this town. I spoke to somebody who knows about these things a couple of weeks ago, which was that he was about to turn his attention to Ukraine and Russia. He wants this off his desk. 4 years and 5 months this war has been raging. Iran is only 5 months. By comparison, it seems very small town, doesn't it, for now?
Yes.
What did you make of what he said there, and what does he do, Hillary?
No, I think one of the things he said about the whole situation in the Middle East, he said the reason now he realizes that other presidents have never addressed it is because it is so difficult. You can't deal with religious fanatics with any kind of logic. You can't use regular military. When we've talked about destroying their infrastructure, most countries care about their people. The Iranians don't care about their people. They've killed 52,000 of their own people. The only thing the Iranians care about is themselves. I think epic fury was what was, economic fury was what was really needed, and that was go after their cryptocurrencies, go after their properties, go after what matters to them and their futures. That is the only thing that matters. But even above and beyond that, when you're a religious fanatic, you want to execute against that, and I don't think they want any kind of survival other than maybe themselves, definitely not their nation. So there's no logic, no military logic is going to get this done.
And we know that obviously this is a thorn in his side, but he's been very clear, Richard, about the fact that he said if he had been president, Russia-Ukraine would never have happened. You obviously would say that wouldn't be the case.
Of course he would say that, because there's no, life is not a controlled experiment. How would we know that? But because that's exactly what he would say.
Of course. He's pinning that on the idea that he would have a better relationship, and he has a better relationship with Vladimir Putin, and he wouldn't have done that on his watch, is what his claim is. Right. That's what he's saying. Is like, he says because he knows I would be serious about taking retaliatory action.
So here's what's happened on his watch, which is Putin has unleashed bombs bombing of Kyiv and these other cities that's much more ferocious than anything he did before Trump was president, like indisputably. So that's what he's gotten for his relationship with Putin. Explain it. I don't know how you do. I mean, again, let's not forget, he said that he was going to solve it on day one when he was running for president. And I'm just saying, what's the solution now? Again, I think that he's got to kind of go in full guns behind Ukraine, not just because it's an answer to Putin, it's an answer to questions about whether the U.S. kind of can be trusted.
But if he does that, won't the left be lining up to call him a warmonger and that he, you know, he just loves bombing people and he's a hawk and all? Because that is what he doesn't want to be known. We know that he wants to be known as the president of peace. He's said it many times. Whether you say that's ego or whether it's just because he doesn't like there being 25,000 dead people a week, as he told me today, it's up to you to decide that. But he'd love to be known as the president of peace.
Of course. All I'm saying is I just think there are ways to help Ukraine without Trump, without the United States looking like it's bombing willy-nilly, like it seems to be in Iran, which is kind of the irony is he said help is on the way, all those people got mowed down, and now he's talking about perhaps either ending the civilization or bombing power plants or bridges. I mean, this is not exactly helpful to the Iranian people should he make good on that, which is what the regime knows that, which is exactly why it's not going to do it.
They don't care about their people, so it doesn't matter to them anyway. It's got
That's why it's a hollow threat.
It has to be economic fury against the actual leadership themselves. That's it. They only care about themselves.
Let me ask my London boys what they think about this, Stephen Pound. I have a feeling, Stephen, that you might have even been in the Britain's newsroom studio with me on that first, I'm sure you were, that first week of the Ukraine war, the Russia's incursion into Ukraine. And do you remember, we all thought it was going to be over fairly quickly. We welcomed all of the Ukrainian refugees into the UK. If you and I had sat there with Andrew Pierce and potentially Mike Parry, and we discussed the fact that we'd still be talking about this 4.5 years later.
We wouldn't
I wonder
have
what we'd have said.
Yeah, wouldn't have. Look, I mean,
No.
I remember that very well indeed. Now, obviously, you know, we have the benefit of hindsight, but in that particular, I mean, I've been to Ukraine many times, and if you're driving east-west in Ukraine, you start off in the Donbass Valley, and everybody speaks Russian. In the centre, south of Kyiv, everybody speaks Ukrainian, and when you get to the west, they tend to speak Polish. And I thought that the Russians would actually get through to Kiev in the first week. The fact is that they didn't, and it's absolutely quite remarkable and quite dramatic that happens. But here's what really worries me. On the one hand, one of your colleagues and will at least be delighted to hear that most of us over here think that the Democrats will take the House in November, less than 4 months, and they've got a damn good chance of taking the Senate. That means that for the last 2 years of President Trump's presidency, all he can actually do is foreign policy, and he has a lamentable history in foreign policy. I mean, so far he claims to have ended wars that never existed with a country that didn't exist in the first place. He's not winning in Iran. He's not bombing back to the Stone Age to any result. You cannot drop democracy from 20,000 feet. So at the present time, we've got a blood-stained stalemate in Ukraine. And both sides are weary. The Poles are building up their army to an incredible degree. In Lithuania, Estonia, Latvia, they're militarizing to an extraordinary degree. So we've got a new Cold War freezing in the center of Europe. And at the same time, we've got this incredibly expensive and ultimately futile war, which is having huge economic... The Fed yesterday, they voted 9-3 to actually not to raise interest rates in America, almost as a direct result of what's happening in Iran. And if you actually look at the statement that came out from the Federal Reserve yesterday, they anticipate that inflation will rise entirely because of Donald Trump's adventurism, his blind folly in that particular area. And now the Houthis and the Red Sea. This is, I'm sorry, it profoundly worries me. And I do hope that America can actually rein back from this, because at the moment, Bev, I don't see an exit ramp. I really do. And I have some sympathy almost for Donald Trump, because he has been looking at this, what he thought was going to be a half-an-hour war, and it's becoming a forever war, and it's hurting every single one of us in our pockets, but above all, in the graves of many good and decent people.
Yeah, well, it's certainly a problem that at the moment there is very much no clear solution for it at all, David. Let me just bring this back to the UK a little bit, because obviously we're talking about American foreign policy here, but obviously we have also poured a huge amount of money into Ukraine, into the pockets, hopefully not of the corrupt Ukrainians, because we know that before the incursion by Russia, Ukraine was roundly accepted to be the most corrupt country in Europe. That hasn't necessarily changed, perhaps. But I think the British taxpayer, David, needs some answers about the fact that we are still funding to the tune of several billion pounds the conflict in Ukraine. And do you think we should be?
No, I do, because the first role of government is defence of the realm, and it is in Britain's interest to support the Ukrainian government. Absolutely, this must be done diligently. The problem we have is we talk hard about supporting Ukraine, but we don't follow it up with actually building up our defence. And yes, it's true we've been giving equipment to Ukraine, but we haven't been replacing that equipment. We have more admirals than we have ships at the moment. I think we have up to 24 hours of artillery shells if we did go to a full-scale conventional conflict. We have barely any tanks. We are, however, investing in drone technology. We are investing in innovation. And in fact, we're learning from Ukrainians on how to fight in a modern battlefield. When the Ukrainians, in weeks, can procure a new drone technology, it takes us years to produce any proper MOD procurement process. So we actually have to learn from the Ukrainians about how we can improve.
Yeah, even President Trump said that a bit, I think, today in the Oval Office. Now, moving on. Bizarre story. The football scandal dominating the front page of the Daily Telegraph. So, Gianni Infantino is facing one of the biggest rebellions of his presidency after unveiling plans to sell a stake in FIFA's commercial rights to private investors through a new multi-billion-dollar company. UEFA has called an emergency meeting after accusing FIFA of trying to commercialise the World Cup without proper consultation, warning the proposals put investors ahead of fans. Now, the controversy comes as FIFA also opens disciplinary proceedings against Argentina. Here they are with a Falklands banner saying that the Falklands belong to Argentina after their World Cup semi-final victory over England. Outrageous behaviour. And let me ask my panel on this. Stephen Pound, why should I care about this story about football? Tell me that, my friend.
You should care greatly about it, because you don't like filthy, stinking, mephitic corruption any more than I do. Look, what I loathe about this particular situation is, you can go back to the glorious days of amateur football being founded in 1863 and everything, and maybe it isn't nowadays the great Corinthian nobility it is, but this stinks. Look, there are 211 nations who are members of FIFA, and Infantino is promising anyone who votes for this, and they've only got 53 days to vote. They've got to do it within 53 days. And what used to happen with all the votes in FIFA, you had to have a 70% majority. Nowadays, it's going to be a simple majority. So if you've got countries like Trinidad, Vanuatu, the Solomon Islands, Cabo Verde, they're going to get $40 million each if they vote for this particular scheme, which is, as you know, run by Jared Kushner, Donald Trump's son-in-law's brother. But look, what's the interesting thing about here, there's a little bit of football democracy is coming out here. So the European football, the South Americans and the Caribbeans and the Asian confederations have all said, we might boycott it. And you remember the Moscow Olympics, which were boycotted? We could do this. And I think I can't wish away capitalism. I'm quite happy to have another world, but capitalism exists. However, absolute naked, this sort of vampire squid of infantinoism, which is actually corrupting totally the football. It's the most naked, blatant bribe you could ever imagine. And what's it all about? It's about money. It is not about football. It's not about that beautiful game. And I have to say, it makes my blood boil.
Most things are about money. Who wants to come in on this? I have no dog in this fight.
What I think is, I just think the European nations are the key football nations. They should all boycott this. Band together, don't let it just be England. But of course, we're out of the EU, so they're not exactly our friends, and they probably won't come in it with us.
Yeah, Richard?
Yeah.
I agree with Hillary. I'll defer to the two in London, honestly.
Go on, David.
I think, talking with the European Union, I think we should do a Brexit on football and bring football home and have a proper corruption-free football authority based here in Britain, where the game came from.
Do you know, today is the 60th anniversary to the very day of that glorious day, July day in 1966, when this country, England, won the World Cup.
At Wembley.
Is it really, Stephen Pound?
It is today.
Oh, wow. That is a wonderful bit of trivia.
We should kick the show off with that, shouldn't we?
And also,
and we won
can I just say
with
what
a Fulham player in the
sport? I'd just say when I talk about sport, I am appalled to my British friends there how little coverage the Commonwealth Games is getting in the UK. I mean, it doesn't get any coverage here at all. But we've got all of our brilliant athletes there, the swimmers, the boxers,
boxers, the athletes, all the netball, all those sports in the Commonwealth Games. No one's watching it, are they, Stephen?
Not many, but bizarrely, quite a few very, very good Commonwealth athletes are actually boycotting it. They're just not turning up there, and I don't know why. It just seems to be a shame. But there's been some really, really exciting, when we consider that, in the swimming, there's been some fantastic results so far, and I don't know why. Maybe because I think we had too much of the summer.
My brother won a Commonwealth silver medal in our hometown of Manchester with the 400 IM. Right, we've got to go. See you tomorrow night. Thank you all.
Yeah.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office. Here on GB News, a cooler feel for many today. Still pretty warm across the southeast and the sunny spells. Fresh breeze and a fair few showers coming in across Scotland. Some showers also for Northern Ireland, especially across the northern half, and the odd shower for Northern England too. Quite a bit more cloud compared to yesterday across the Midlands, southwest England, South Wales. 1 or 2 light showers just drifting through, but nothing really useful for gardeners. And a bit more of that cloud just spilling into the southeast through the day, so it won't be as sunny here, won't be as hot either, but still quite warm at 28 Celsius. Cooler conditions further north, and certainly feeling pretty chilly with the rain across northern Scotland, which will actually be quite heavy at times here for Orkney, Caithness, Sutherland down into Aberdeenshire. Quite a wet afternoon. Elsewhere, the showers will move through across central and southern Scotland with a fairly brisk breeze, and there'll be some bright spells, particularly across the borders. Some sunny spells too for Northern Ireland. Just a few showers, mostly across the north, and some of those will feed into Cumbria as well. But much of England and Wales looking dry and sunny this afternoon, but a much cloudier afternoon, certainly compared to recent days across the southeast and East Anglia. Again, a little bit of light rain, but nothing for the gardeners that's of any use. And that'll tend to clear away slowly overnight. We'll keep some showers coming into the north and the west. A much, much fresher night, much cooler night, much more comfortable night. Temperatures across northern parts down into single figures, well down in some rural spots. So a much cooler, fresher start to Friday. Another fine and sunny day by and large. Could start quite cloudy across Kent in particular. The clouds should break up here. There'll be some showers coming in across northwest England, again the north of Northern Ireland and western Scotland. But elsewhere, most places dry, plenty of sunshine across the south. But instead of temperatures in the mid-30s, temperatures more likely to be back in the mid-20s. So it is turning cooler.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace to Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me. Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that, because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
We can allow. We can allow.
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Here at GB News, we made a promise to tell your stories. And on the 6th of August, we're marking 5 years of doing exactly that.
Celebrate with us by having your say. Join in the debates live on TV and radio.
And meeting your favourite presenters across the country, from Leeds to Aberdeen, from Belfast to Barry Island.
Plus, join me in Essex for our biggest live show of the year. Scan the QR code or visit gbnews.com/celebrate. Terms and conditions apply.
The GB News audience is different, it's unique, because they see through the nonsense.
We want to debate with each other, we want to listen and